LOG from Where There's Smoke. Hold on. Gonna go live today and talk about the Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson interview. It's almost, I think it's about 10 or 11 days old, so it almost got to the 2 week mark. It's a little old. I wanted to kind of get on that a little sooner, but shit happens. And I did the Mexican OT. Uh, everyone jumping on him for using the N word, and Sauce Walker's response to that. I did that 3 or 4 days ago, maybe 5 days ago. That got a really good response. That was a really good video, a hit. Most people seem to enjoy. So if y'all haven't seen that, go check that out. I'm sure everyone's probably that cares about that's probably pretty up to date on it. But anyway, I feel like this Tucker and Ted thing is a real big thing that happened in the political world lately, and that's something I love to cover here and kind of give my opinion and dissect things and point out inconsistencies, and the hypocrisy is off the charts. And just give my dialogue on it and stuff. So I'm gonna, as always, check the video, check the audio on the different sites, YouTube, Rumble, Kick. I went ahead and turned up the videos that I preview, like, to me, what is not my mic volume, but is what, like, the videos that I review and shit, the desktop audio for me on this end. I went ahead and turned that up a little bit, so because I noticed it was a little quiet. So hopefully that'll be better for y'all this time. And but yeah, let me check the audio and video. Give me about a minute, and then we'll kind of get into it. So let me check that out real quick. Get out of here. I would up a little bit, so because I noticed it was a little quiet. So almost, I think it's about 10 or 11 days old, so it almost got to the 2 week mark. It's a little old. Kick check. Kick check. All right, cool. Kick check. All right, cool. Kick check. All right, cool. Kick check. This. All right, everything looks good. Let's go ahead and get into it. I have the speed up turned up to 1 1/4, so that this 2 hour interview will hopefully only be about an hour and a half. Hopefully, I have the video labeled as part one, just in case it gets long winded and I have to break this into two different streams. But we might be able to tackle this all in one video. We'll just kind of play it by ear. But yeah, I have the speed turned up, so hopefully we can get through it faster. If it's a little too fast, I'll turn it down. But let's just see how it goes.
Senator, thank you very much for spending the time to have this
conversation. Let me change over the audio real quick. Give me a second.
Regime change in Iran, as distinct just from taking out the nuclear sites. What does regime change look like in Iran?
Somebody else in charge.
All right, I'm gonna have to turn it down. That's a little. If they get a little long-winded, we'll turn it back up. Let's try 115.
How do you get there?
Look, that ultimately has to be a popular uprising from the people. And it's not a complicated question. Is America better off with a country that has a leader who hates us and wants to kill us, or to have a country with a leader who likes us and wants to be friends with us?
And definitely the latter's better.
Of course.
Yeah.
And so that's not a complicated statement. Look, I believe you look across the world when you have countries that have dictators that are viciously anti-America. Venezuela, Maduro hates us. Would we be better off with Maduro out of power? Absolutely. I want our enemies out of power, and I want our friends in power.
I could not agree more. The question is, how do you get there?
Of course.
And we've been trying to kill Maduro for quite some time. We have troops.
Hold on. Somebody hit my line. I got to respond real quick. All right, so already real quick, they're talking about regime change, and of course we would like to have world leaders that don't want to kill or hate and kill us, but that's like if someone else in another part of the world is like, yeah, the United States hates us and they're always fucking with us. Like, how are we going to get rid of their leader? It's like, it gets in a real gray area of like, just because we don't like someone, who are we to say that they should be out of power? And it's one thing to like put sanctions on them and kind of do that thing if we don't really support what they're doing and kind of they're, they're evil as we see it, or they don't give their people rights, and we want to put sanctions on them or tariffs or whatever, tariffs. Um, but for us to like try to create an uprising, which they're going to talk about, or even potentially kill their leaders or stuff, that's where it's like we feel like it's okay for us to do that sometimes. But if anyone ever did that to us, we would not be fucking with it. So, you know, I don't know, it's just like we almost think like we're more important and more justified to do these crazy things than other people, and that's kind of a flawed concept for sure.
There, as you
I
know.
don't know that we've been trying to kill Maduro.
We have, and I think you know that. And
I think you know that.
Don't know that.
okay, well, as a statement of fact, we have. So
we do have massive sanctions. We tried to pressure him out of office.
yeah, and there's
I'm
all
not,
kinds
not
of
aware
stuff.
of.
I'm just saying there's a lot of pressure coming from various parts of the U.S. government on that government, and it's still there.
Yeah.
Same, the country of our ancestors, Cuba. 1959. We've been working on that. Hasn't worked. So it's. I think we both agree it's hard to do.
It absolutely is hard. And look, I think you're reasonable to ask, how do we produce that? And I think there's a distinction between what your objective is and the means to get it. There are all sorts of things I would say we would be better off. We'd be better off in China without Xi there. Should we invade China and topple Xi? Of course not.
Better off with no national debt.
There are lots of things.
Totally.
But it's good to say, all right, what are our objectives?
Right.
And so with the Ayatollah in Iran, saying you're for regime change, I don't view as complicated. I mean, the guy literally leads mobs chanting death to America.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not good.
Definitely not good. But the reason I think it's important to get a little more detailed about how that might happen is because there's military action in progress, which we're supporting. And the president has said clearly, including last night, that he is focused on eliminating the capacity of the Iranian government to produce nuclear weapons. You are saying we need to use military force to effect regime change.
I have not said that.
Oh, I must have.
No, I have not said that once.
Okay.
I don't think we need to use military force to do regime change. I said I support it. I would like to see it happen. You asked me how should it happen? A popular uprising. What I've advocated for.
It's time for there used to be a conspiracy channel that was pretty unhinged called "It's a Call for an Uprising." It's like, okay, so you don't want to take out fucking mic cords. Oh, shit. Hold on. Bruh. Yeah, so it's like even causing an uprising. If we found out that some of the protests, especially ones that have turned more violent, were influenced and heavily started or ignited by foreign countries where they sent in quote unquote sleeper cells, like we think they may have recently, and they're agitators at the protest, we would be fucking pissed about that. So it's like, how can we even say we want a popular uprising in a country to go on if we're for that? It starts to lead like, well, what would we do to set that in motion? And is that like a good thing? It's like all these things, like I'm using this word loosely, but all these liberties we take to do stuff in other countries where if they did it to us, we would be pissed and take it as like an act of war. But we think it's okay for us to just do it. So very interesting.
All right, let's step back a second. You and I, we've known each other a long time. I would say we agree on about 80% of the things on Earth.
For sure.
And there are a lot of things, and we can get into the nitty-gritty of foreign policy as much as you want. There are a lot of things on which you...
Remember that Ted proposed that they agree on about 80% of things violently, and Tucker agreed.
And I agreed, not just a little bit, but violently.
Oh, that's where he said
I
it.
totally agree.
I've seen the first like 30 to 45 minutes of this already, so some of this stuff I already have seen, but anyway.
For in your last campaign, for sure.
Well, thank you. Look, you have been heroic on...
I was rooting for you in your last campaign. Does anyone take that serious Tucker face seriously anymore?
On the border, you've been one of the clearest and best voices in the whole country on securing the border and on the absolute crisis we're facing. And in Texas, I see it and live it every day. In COVID,
I see it and live it every day. Yeah, you're down here in the trenches with us. Come on, bro. I mean, and by the way, he's about to bring up during COVID, he loved how Tucker was, pointing out the inconsistencies and stuff. But during COVID, and I can pull up the video here in a minute. I don't know if anyone really cares to see it or remembers this, but when it was really getting thick in the thick of COVID, and when it was really all the lockdowns were at their heaviest, Ted Cruz fled to another country. I think it was either Mexico or Cancun or something, which Cancun is in Mexico, I believe. I feel like I should know that. Anyway, he fled to a foreign country to like have some fun in the sun. He didn't stay here and like endure the lockdowns like we all did. He fucking went somewhere else where he didn't have to deal with it. I feel so stupid. I'm gonna look that up. I'm like 90% sure. Yeah, it's in Mexico. Okay. Yeah, he fled to Mexico, Cancun specifically, and it's not like he stuck it out here and was like, he's not a man of the people, basically, what I'm getting at.
In fact, you may recall in the middle of the COVID lockdown, I was out walking my dog when the whole world was shut down and we were living in lunatic times. And I called you and said, Tucker, your nightly monologues are the single best thing on television. Like I watch them like an injection of crack. Okay, I'm mixing my metaphor because you don't inject crack, but you get what I'm saying.
Try.
No, I mean, you were standing up and speaking like, what the hell are we doing, in a way that we desperately
That is a big reason why I started this channel, because I wish I would have had this channel during COVID, so I could have been pointing out all the inconsistencies and all the crap during COVID and all the bullshit. I don't watch Tucker, so I don't remember how well he was doing that during COVID, but that's like probably the number one reason I started this channel, because if something like that ever happens again, I want to be able to have a voice. But YouTube was limiting the hell out of what you could say even after COVID, but I wanted to have a voice and be able to say, this doesn't make sense, that doesn't make sense, this is bullshit, and be able to have people that are viewers give their opinion and have a dialogue here and just, have a conversation that I feel like wasn't being had many places, if at all.
And so whether it's securing the border, whether it's the insanity of COVID lockdowns and the vaccine mandates, whether it is the Second Amendment or the First Amendment, you and I agree on a ton of stuff. The 20% where we disagree, I do.
I wonder if Ted Cruz got the vaccine. He's saying it was insane, but it's like, come on, brother. Were you thinking that at the time, or were you saying that at the time? Let's see. I know Trump got it, so you can just tuck that feather in your hat. Let me see. I'm not seeing anything on it. Let me do one more search and then we'll get back to it. I just want to know. Let's see. Ooh, yes. Ted Cruz received a COVID-19 vaccine in April 2021. He explicitly stated that he would stop wearing a mask in the state chamber now that he was vaccinated. So he bought into the COVID bullshit. He's claiming like, now, it was crazy, and thank you, Tucker, for calling it out. It's like, dude, you were a schmuck. You fell right in line. I don't remember any politician speaking out in the beginning about how crooked the lockdowns were, how bullshit the vaccine mandates, and how the push, really just the peer pressure to get the vaccine was. I don't remember him speaking out against any of that. And as I mentioned earlier, he fled to Cancun and got away from all our strict lockdowns. So it's not like he was down here in the trenches enduring it with us. And it's just like bullshit. It's revisionist history. And, he definitely wasn't standing up for the people and telling us the truth. Or he wasn't like, even though most people were quote unquote fooled during that time or pressured into, it's not like he saw the truth at the time. He was fooled or coaxed into saying the wrong thing at the time. So the fact that he's acting like he knew that COVID, he was on the wrong side of the COVID jig. Let's just put it that way.
I do think is meaningful, and it's mostly in the foreign policy space. And what I would say, if you'll allow me to get a little theoretical, and then I'm happy to get specific.
Yes.
For a long time, people had perceived two different poles of Republican foreign policy. There have been interventionists, and those have been people like John McCain and Lindsey Graham and George W. Bush. And there have been isolationists. And the most prominent of those have been Ron Paul and Rand Paul, and there are others. And people perceive those are the two choices. You got to be one or the other. I've always thought both were wrong. I don't agree with either one. The way I view my own foreign policy.
I'm with you, by the way, for whatever it's worth.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Okay, good.
I don't know who set up that binary, but there are lots of choices, actually.
I mean, people sort of naturally fall into, I think they want to classify people, and they're like, okay, you're one or the other, and you got to be all or nothing. And the interventionists, it seems, have never seen a country they didn't want to invade, and that doesn't make any sense to me. And the isolationists, I think, don't take the threats to America seriously, and I think that's naive, and it doesn't work. And so my view, I consider myself a third point on the triangle.
A third point on the triangle? I could maybe do a breakdown on that at some point, but if you're into the conspiracy / truther, if you've done some research into that stuff, you know that the triangle is a long, I mean, it's on the back of the dollar bill, for goodness sakes. It's been a long, it's part of deeper stuff. It's, the whole Illuminati thing of the secret societies, the triangle is important to them for whatever reason, the pyramid. So there's a deeper meaning to that. And I don't even know what all they entail, but I know that that's a big symbol for them. Symbolism is huge for the occult. So I don't know exactly what all it symbolizes, but I know that's a big thing for him. So it's funny for him to use that analogy there.
And what I describe that as is that I am a non-interventionist hawk, which sounds a little weird, but what do I mean by that?
You're a fool.
I mean the central touch point for U.S. foreign policy and for any question of military intervention should be the vital national security interest of the United States. How does this make America safer? How does this protect Americans? If it does, we should be strong. And actually, another way of conceiving what I'm saying, I'm speaking theoretically, but Reagan referred to it as peace through strength. And actually, I think Donald Trump's foreign policy is very much what I'm describing, a non-interventionist hawk, where he understands that, and I think this is historically true, the best way to avoid war is being strong. That weakness and isolationism, I think, encourages war. So going back to regime change, where you started in Iran.
Just to make, I don't think I disagree with anything you've said, so we may not be that far apart, really, because you said that the single criterion for making decisions about America's foreign policy is America's national interest.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah. Which is also...
Okay. So he said the single thing about us of foreign policy is our interest first. Let's remember that for the rest of the interview and see if that stays congruent or if that's just something that sounds good right now.
America first. That's another way of putting that as well.
I think it's the definition of it.
Yeah.
It's hardly breaking news. The U.S. dollar has been gravely devalued by
Oh, it's a fucking ad. Great.
Washington money printing. You print money out of thin air and the currency becomes weaker. You can purchase less with the same amount. The entire system is backed by nothing but the government's word. What is that worth? People around the world are beginning to ask. So one of the results of this is that a lot of people want to invest in crypto.
Crypto, that's the answer. That's not going to fuck us in the ass in a couple years. No chance of that happening.
Many don't know where to start. That's where I Trust Capital comes in. Their platform makes the crypto game smarter, easier, safer.
Really, Tucker, you trust capital? You trust I Trust Capital? Oh, man, why didn't you just say that sooner?
And you can understand it. With I Trust Capital, you buy and sell crypto inside a tax-advantaged IRA. That means the same long-term tax benefits of a retirement account.
What a total tool.
Paired with the freedom to invest in digital assets. They also offer secure non-retirement accounts, use an airtight security system, and have real human beings, experts on call if you ever need them. You just
Real
call up
humans?
and you can talk to them
Why didn't you just say so?
in person. Creating an account is very simple. It takes just a few minutes. Click the link below or visit itrustcapital.com to start today.
The question is, are we watching that now?
So I think we are. And from what you've said publicly, I think on Iran in particular, you and I disagree. And all right, let me contrast it when Obama was president. When Obama was president, you remember he talked about wanting to have military action against Syria.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I tried to keep an open mind to it. I said, okay, let me listen to the commander-in-chief, describe to me how this is in America's interest and what your plan is. And Bashar Assad was a bad guy. He was killing his own citizens, and he had chemical weapons that were very dangerous. I could conceive of a commander-in-chief laying out a plan for, okay, we're going to go in and say, grab the chemical weapons and leave. Like, I could see that if there was a real threat to America and there was a plan to prevent that, I could see supporting that. So I wanted to hear what he had to say. And I listened both in classified briefings and public questioning. And number one, their public defense of it was incoherent. So John Kerry said, we're going to engage in an unbelievably small strike. I think that's a quote. I'm like, okay, and to do what? At the time, there were 9 major rebel Islamic groups in Syria. I'm like, okay, I agree, Bashar Assad's a bad guy. You topple him. And one of the 9 other groups takes
over. He talks about that so nonchalantly. Okay, we don't like these people over here in Syria, topple one. It's like, what if people talked about America that way? The Republicans and Democrats, we don't really like the Republicans, let's just topple that party. We'd be like, whoa, like if another country thinks they're going to do that, that's like that'd be like an act of war, basically.
Over 7 of them were affiliated with radical Islamic terrorism. You had Al-Qaeda and Al-Nusra. I'm like, wait, how is it better to have lunatics who hate us in charge? Assad's a bad guy, but I don't want worse guys in charge. Obama administration couldn't give an answer to that. And ultimately, when you press them, John Kerry in particular, I pressed, and he would say, well, we need to defend international norms. Like, what the hell's an international norm? I don't know what it is, but I'm not interested in putting U.S. servicemen and women in harm's way to defend one.
Amen.
So I opposed the Syria attack and opposed it vocally. And it was interesting. Rand and I agreed. Rand's a friend of mine, but we agreed with that position for different reasons. What I was asking is I think the question we should ask, how does this make America safer? The Obama administration couldn't give me an answer, so I opposed it. I think Iran is very different.
Let me ask what you think of how Syria wound up, because Bashar al-Assad now lives in Moscow.
Yeah.
He was taken out by our allies, and he's been replaced by a radical Islamist who was affiliated with ISIS. So is that a win or no?
Unclear. Look, Syria's a mess, so I've consistently opposed.
But we had a secular leader in a religious and ethnically diverse country. Now we have a religious extremist, Islamic religious extremist, who's overseen the purge of Christians and Alawites. Is that better? That doesn't seem like a win.
One of the things you said is he was taken out by our allies. I don't think that's right. Israel didn't take Assad out. What happened, and I'll tell you.
What about Turkey?
Turkey didn't take him out. So it was interesting. I had a long
How did Assad get kicked out? Yeah.
When Netanyahu was in D.C. a couple of months ago, he and I sat down for a couple of hours. He's a good friend of mine. And we talked actually about Syria. He made an interesting point that I've not heard anywhere else, in that he said he believes what toppled Assad was when Israel took out Nasrallah. Nasrallah was the head of Hezbollah. They took him out. And he made an interesting point. He said it's fascinating how a charismatic leader, and Bibi said, look, Nasrallah was a very effective terrorist leader. And when they took him out, that power base was supporting Assad. And that ultimately, in Bibi's analysis, removed the support from Assad and toppled him. But they weren't trying to take out Assad. My view now, I don't know.
So you don't think that, and I don't, it is very confusing, and I don't know that anyone really knows all the details, but you don't think that Israel or Turkey or NATO ally Turkey played any role in toppling Assad?
I don't know. I don't know that they did. Look, my understanding of that, they clearly took out...
Come on, how can... You don't know?
Nasrallah and Hezbollah, they've decimated Hezbollah, but Hezbollah was waging war on them. So decimating Hezbollah was very good for Israel and very good for America, too. I mean, Hezbollah hated us.
Bro. All right, everybody. YouTube's down. Hold on. Sorry, Kick. Sorry, Rumble. YouTube got shut down. I'm going to throw the link for the people over there. Let's see. Y'all coming over to Rumble or Kick? I'm putting the, I guess YouTube people can't hear me, but give me a second, people that are on Kick or Rumble. I'm putting the link in the YouTube stream so they can come on over. Apparently YouTube and Tucker Carlson are being cucks. Yeah, hold on. Give me a second. So what I'm going to do is, give me a second. So what I'll do, I guess for the people on Rumble or Kick, it doesn't matter because y'all are going to be viewing it right now. But I will download the live stream from Rumble and then I'll post it to YouTube later. Sorry, YouTube. You're going to have to come on over to Rumble or Kick. All right, that's lame. Yeah, well, it is what it is. All right, let's continue on Rumble. So let me pull the video back up for y'all. Okay. So let's Let me hold on. Give me one more second. I'll just leave the stream up. That way, if people find it, they can still come over. But so the YouTube stream will be up, but it won't be able to be viewed. You'll have to come over to Rumble or Kick. Oh, they posted it back, but I feel like they're gonna take it down if I continue to try to go on YouTube. So if you're on YouTube and you can hear me right now, you're gonna have to come over to Kick or Rumble. I'll leave the stream up so people can still find it, but yeah, I'm not gonna be able to play the video over there. Let me just try to leave my camera up and. Oh no, that's gonna hurt the people on Rumble and Kick. Damn. I'm gonna have to end the YouTube. You know, I'll let it go and see if it stays up, but I doubt it will. All right, let's continue. But people on YouTube, go over to Rumble and Kick, because soon they're going to kick me off of YouTube, and you'll only be able to watch this on Rumble or Kick until I do the re-upload, maybe tomorrow or something. So anyway, let's continue.
I would put Assad in the category of an unintended consequence, and whether it's good or bad, I don't know. I think time will tell.
For the United States.
Yeah, for the United States. I think time will tell the new leadership there. You're right to be concerned. Let me step back and let's talk regime change generally. I mentioned Syria. I also oppose the Iraq War. I think the Iraq War was a serious mistake. And we have a pattern, and going back to this binary of the intervention.
That's a big thing for you to say the Iraq War was a mistake. I mean, not for the everyday person, but for a politician to actually say that, it's like, think about the money. And not only that, that might be a big eye popper for somebody, but think about all the innocent life that was lost. Think about all the army people that we sent over there and people that died or became wounded and their lives are never the same, or they saw a friend die over there or a family member died over there. Like, you just say that was a mistake. We should have never done that. Well, that war waged on for years. We spent all this money. We lost all this life. People's lives were changed forever. And for you to say, well, that was a mistake, which I agree, but it's like, damn, like we really, really, really need to be sure before we go to war somewhere, because we're messing with people's lives.
And the isolationists. The interventionists.
YouTube, can you hear me? No, you can't. Oh, well.
Advocate over and over again. There's a bad guy. There's a dictator who's doing bad things to his people. And they say, let's go topple him. And you have dictators in the Middle East who are killing radical Islamic terrorists. We come in and topple them. The radical Islamic terrorists take over and they start killing Americans. In my view, how the heck does that help us? Like, Saddam Hussein was a horrible human being. He murdered and tortured people. Unequivocally bad guy. But it got much worse after we toppled him. And you ended up having ISIS rise up. I mean, that was the cause of ISIS, was toppling Saddam Hussein. Same thing in Libya. You had Gaddafi, another horrible guy, that under Obama, we toppled him. And you ended up having radical Islamic warlords taking over. And so, it's the question I asked in Syria. Okay, well, what's the plan? And how is this good or bad for the United States? And so I don't think... With Iran, I view Iran as very different from Iraq.
But up to that point, you say we disagree. I don't hear really anything. I'm not quite sure what happened in Syria, but I don't know. So, right. But other than that, I don't hear anything I disagree with at all.
Yeah.
Sounds like we're in a complete agreement. I wonder, though, is there a successful regime change that the United States supported that you're aware of in the last 100 years?
Sure. Defeating the Soviet Union and the Soviet Union collapsing, winning the Cold War. That was the most consequential step for U.S. national security interests of our lifetimes.
Okay.
And
so you would classify that as a regime change that we affected?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Look, you and I are in my office. We're sitting next to a painting of Reagan in front of the Brandenburg Gate. And up top...
Don't forget, Reagan was an actor, much like Trump, that was basically a movie star. Trump was a TV star, and amongst other things. But Ronald Reagan was a whole actor before he became president. So... I could do more research, but I would like to, about Reagan and how he, like, that's just a weird thing for someone that's just a career actor to then be a politician and be the president, the highest politician. So, but there's some similarities between Reagan and Trump, for sure.
Are the words "tear down this wall" in German, in the style of the graffiti.
Right.
And I think those are the most important words any leader has said in modern times. And if you look at how Reagan waged the Cold War, and Reagan is very much my
Tear down the wall. That was the most important thing. A recent politician. How did he phrase it?
model for look at how Reagan waged the Cold War. And Reagan is very much my model for how to. I actually think how Reagan took on the Soviet Union is exactly how we should take on China. Now, starting from the point, look, Reagan was not an interventionist. In 8 years, the biggest country Reagan.
Did I not go back far enough?
I actually think how. And Reagan is very much. And if you look at how Reagan waged the Cold War. And Reagan is very much my model for how to. I actually think how Reagan took on the Soviet Union is exactly how we should. If you, and I think those are the most in German, in the style of the graffiti.
Right.
And I think those are the most important words any leader has said in modern times. And if
not JFK saying we have secret society in this country and we find I'm paraphrasing here, but he said we find the secret societies to be repugnant in this society, and basically saying we're not going to stand for secret societies. That to me is one of the most impactful and powerful things a leader has said in modern times. Not this whole thing about tear down the wall. That doesn't affect us. How about someone exposing the corruption and bullshit here? That's what I find to be one of the most impactful things said by a modern leader. Not this tear down the wall. I mean, that might be important to people overseas, but to people here, and what was the most impactful here? And he got killed for it. So that's what I would say is the most impactful thing.
If you look at how Reagan waged the Cold War, and Reagan is very much my model for how to. I actually think how Reagan took on the Soviet Union is exactly how we should take on China. Now, starting from the point, look, Reagan was not an interventionist. In 8 years, the biggest country Reagan ever invaded was Grenada. He was very reluctant to use U.S. military force.
He didn't respond after the 83 barracks bombings.
You're right.
They were...
He made the judgment that the risk exceeded the benefits. And that's a very rational decision to make. And it's reflected. Trump has made those same decisions where he is willing to use military force, but he very much asks, okay, is this good or bad for America? Does this endanger U.S. servicemen and women or not? And one of the points about the Cold War, look, nobody in their right mind wanted a shooting war between America and the Soviet Union. The two biggest nuclear powers on Earth firing bullets at each other is really unhealthy for human beings. Same thing is true with China. Nobody with any sense says, hey, let's go to war with China. That's really dumb, and a whole lot of people could die. But the Cold War showed we've got lots of tools short of sending the Marines to fight against a regime. And one of the most important tools is the bully pulpit. And so when I say I support regime change, I actually think just simply laying out what the Ayatollah does. And so I spend a lot of time, I speak to Iranian dissident groups. I speak out against human rights abuses. I think shining a light on the depravity of leaders is a really powerful tool that America has.
Should we limit our activity to that?
It depends. Again,
because the U.S. government pays opposition groups, militarized opposition groups in Iran to overthrow the government. We've done it in a lot of different places.
What do y'all think about that? We pay militarized opposition groups to overthrow a government. That doesn't sound terrible. In fact, I'm pretty sure on more than one occasion, or at least one occasion, one of those groups that we've given a bunch of money and weapons to overthrow somebody, then they take over and then they're against us. So it's like we're fighting these proxy wars or giving these little basically terrorist groups money to overthrow a government we don't want, and then they become the government and then they hate us too. So it's like, what the fuck is really accomplished there?
As you know, I'm not saying it's bad, but that's very different from what you're describing. You're saying we're making a moral case, as we did for 7 years with the Soviets. Our system works, yours doesn't.
Yep.
And I think we made a credible case for that, and we beat them over 70 years economically.
And that was a huge part of it.
Right. I think everyone would agree that was the main part of it. We didn't beat them in Vietnam, North Korea.
The main part of it that was tied.
So that's what Vietnam and North Korea about. Those are fighting proxy wars against the Soviet Union. I always wondered what the point was of Vietnam and Korea too, but especially Vietnam. Why the hell were we over there? But it had to do with the fighting against Russia. And those wars, especially Vietnam, but both of those wars were terrible, terrible wars that a lot of people died for nothing, seemingly.
Do a military buildup. So I think it was two things. It was one, the clarity. So Reagan came in and he described the Soviet Union as an evil empire.
Right.
And all of the intelligentsia in D.C., all the Democrats, all the media, they're like, what a horrible thing to say. You can't say that. Reagan went to the United Kingdom and he said, Marxism, Leninism will end up on the ash heap of history. People were horrified. They asked him, all right, what's your strategy in the Cold War? He said, very simple. We win, they lose. And that was all viewed as sort of a Philistine simplicity. And I think it was exactly right. And laying that out, speaking, do you know the backstory behind the Berlin Wall speech?
Yeah, I do. Yes.
You probably know Peter Robinson, who
Of
was
course.
the speechwriter.
Yes.
So 3 times the State Department deleted those words from that speech. And 3 times Reagan wrote it back. And the State Department argued, they said, Mr. President, you can't say this. This is too bellicose. This is too provocative. And my favorite, they said, this is too unrealistic. The Berlin Wall will stand till the end of time. And Reagan said, look, this is the whole point of the speech. And less than 3 years after Reagan gave that speech, the Berlin Wall was torn to the ground. And it wasn't knocked down by American Army tanks. We didn't shoot missiles at it. It was shining truth and light that tore it down. It was also rebuilding the American military. It was what was then pejoratively called Star Wars, where the Soviet Union, their economy couldn't match our military buildup, and it bankrupted them. That's an example of peace through strength.
I wonder, I mean, is there anybody who was alive in 1989 who wouldn't trade that America for the one we live in now? There's not one person, I don't think.
Oh, sure.
But I mean, just the basic metrics, debt, suicide rate, life expectancy. I wonder why after that victory, America didn't thrive in the way that we thought that it would, that I thought that it would. My family was involved in that. I mean, we were very focused on it in my house. Like,
Yeah.
we won. And I wonder 2 things. Why didn't the United States kind of declare victory and make some sort of arrangement with Russia that allowed like mutual prosperity rather than continuing a Cold War? And second, I wonder why the United States didn't get a lot better. Like, why don't we have better infrastructure? Why don't we have fewer homeless? Why do we have all these drugs? Like, if we won, why does our country look like this?
Yeah, because it wasn't about that. I mean, we never cared about really helping the people. The government never really cared about helping the people. Come on now, pay attention. You think that war was really about, like, I don't know what it was about, but it damn sure wasn't about helping the people here at home.
I walked across from Union Station this morning, as you do, I'm sure, every day. And all these people lying in the street and sleeping outside. It's like, what is that?
We're sorry to say it, but this is not a very safe country. Walk through Oakland
Bro, 2 ads within the first 20 minutes is, like, terrible.
or Philadelphia. Yeah, good luck. So most people, when they think about this, want to carry a firearm, and a lot of us do. The problem is there can be massive consequences for that. Ask Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse got off in the end, but he was innocent from the first moment. It was obvious on video, and he was facing life in prison anyway. That's what the anti-gun movement will do. They'll throw you in prison for defending yourself with a firearm. And that's why a lot of Americans are turning to Byrna. It's a proudly American company. Byrna makes self-defense launchers that hundreds of law enforcement departments trust. They've sold over 600,000 pistols, mostly to private citizens who refuse to be empty-handed. These pistols, and I have one, fire rock-hard kinetic rounds or tear gas rounds and pepper projectiles, and they stop a threat from up to 60 feet away. There are no background checks, there are no waiting periods. Byrna can ship it directly to your door. You can't be arrested for defending yourself with a Byrna pistol. Visit Byrna, BYRNA.com, or your local Sportsman's Warehouse to get yours today. Byrna.com.
That actually might be a good alternative for someone who's a felon and can't carry a weapon, or maybe a woman or somebody that doesn't want to carry an actual gun but wants to defend themselves. So might be a decent plug. I don't know.
Look, there's no doubt there are really dangerous forces in our society. Some of it is politics and some of it is culture. And one of the mistakes people make in politics is thinking everything is politics. So the political answer, which I happen to believe, is we went much further down the road of liberalism. You look at Bill Clinton, who inherited the peace dividend of the Cold War being over and moved us more to the left, and then Obama accelerated.
Us going further and further to the left, I don't think had anything to do with the Cold War. I could be wrong, but that was another whole separate agenda to poison us.
It a lot. So there are
And
lots
it
of
has been poisonous.
I agree.
bad economic policies, but I also think they're cultural things. You know, the
Well,
loss of
I
faith,
agree with
the loss
all of that.
family.
I know what you're going to say, and I agree 100%. I bet there's not one word that I would disagree with. All I'm saying is, like, I think it's important to step back and ask.
But I actually think Russia has very little to do with it. So
Well, that's kind of
Exactly,
the point
yeah.
that I'm trying to make, which is, like, we're all sort of focused on beating our adversaries abroad, but what is victory worth if our own country becomes what it is now?
I agree.
And maybe we're spending a little too much time focused abroad and not enough time focused on the people sleeping outside Union Station.
I agree.
So, look, I absolutely think we need to focus at home emphatically, and we need to focus on prosperity. We need to focus on.
Do you? Come on. Just a quick note though, if y'all are tuning into the stream, I really appreciate y'all. Y'all get in the comments Can't even talk. Y'all get in the comments and let me know what y'all think. Something y'all agree or disagree with these two guys. If I'm making a point that you agree or disagree with, or if you have another point that you can think of, chime in with the conversation. I'd love to hear from y'all. And let's get back into it.
On reducing the debt, reducing spending, empowering people, low taxes, small businesses, American free enterprise. It's the most powerful force for fighting poverty the world has ever seen. I'm 1,000% there. I also recognize it is a dangerous world, and part of the responsibility of leaders, part of President Trump's responsibility, is to keep America safe. Let's go back to where we started.
But
with
can I ask,
Ram.
you've been in the district a long time in D.C., so have I. And the city's way more dangerous, and Congress runs this city.
No, it's a complete crap hole.
So I'm saying, like, no Iranian's ever going to kill me, but I could get carjacked here.
Well,
and I just don't understand how the Congress could run this city and focus on the dangers of Iran when the city is like garbage. It's garbage.
But Congress doesn't run the city. We could.
Congress does run the city. It's in the Constitution.
It's in the Constitution, but they've given home rule, so it's a Democrat mayor.
Take it back. You control the Congress.
I'd vote for it, but it is a question of math.
Okay, but I'm just saying, like, why? How can people ignore? It's like, if my own kids are drug addicts, but I'm focused on my neighbor's kids, it's like I'm neglecting my own kids. And there's a sense in which the Congress is neglecting the country that elected them in favor of this relentless focus on other people's problems. That's the way it feels as an American.
Look, there are lots of problems in America that we need to fix. Why is D.C. a pit? Because you have a mayor and a Democrat city council that won't let police officers arrest bad guys. And in every city you see across the country.
So this is like a cop-out. If you see that D.C. is a pit and you see that the people that are supposed to be running it are not, like Tucker said, y'all have the power to take control of that. Why not do it? Why not make it safe? And there's plenty of other problems throughout the country. Why are we not ever focusing on those? And instead of answering those questions or saying, you're right, we should, he just tries to deflect and move back to the foreign policy stuff. Which, you know, that's the main thing in this interview, and that's what we all want to hear about and stuff. But I think we all want stuff to be fixed here at home, too. So
whether it's New York, whether it's Chicago, whether it's L.A., whether it's San Francisco, if you have Democrats...
And the reason we care about foreign policy so much at this point is because of the conflict with Israel and Iran. But more often than not, most Americans don't want to go to war, and we all want things here fixed. So, brilliant question by Tucker, and, you know, Ted's dancing like a motherfucker.
The LA riots, where they won't let people be arrested. All right.
Then why not work in regime change here? Why not use the bully pulpit?
I do. What do you think I do every day?
I've never seen a Republican senator stand up and say, I just walked to work this morning over people dying of drug ODs. We're going to shut this place down unless they fix it. They're mad about Putin. Like, what did Putin do to Washington? Nothing.
Look, in terms of regime change, let's talk this week. The riots in LA. I've made very clear that the cause of those riots are Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass. And when you elect communists who hate America, who stop law enforcement from arresting criminals, you get what you get on the street.
Amen, I agree.
My in-laws are Californians, and they're wonderful people. Heidi grew up on the Central Coast of California. And I remember I was texting with my mother-in-law, and I think I sent her a video of criminals going into a store and just looting in California. And her response, she said something like, well, this is really terrible. I wish we could. It's a shame we can't do anything about this. I said, yes, you can. Go in and arrest them. Throw their butts in jail. Put them in handcuffs.
100%.
And it stops.
Exactly.
And so we know how to fix these things. And D.C. is I think D.C. voted, if I remember right, 92% Democrat. Democrat policies don't work, and they destroy every community that they are in charge of.
Then why don't Republicans assert their constitutional authority over the city? Don't they control the Congress?
Yes, I'd be all for it.
Who's against it?
Susan Collins is really vocally against it. So on questions of home rule, so for example, let's take an issue you and I care a lot about, the COVID lockdowns. I had a couple of years ago in the middle of them.
Yeah, again, during the COVID lockdowns, you took a little hiatus, didn't you? And none of these Republican people were against the lockdowns or speaking out against them or saying how dead wrong they were. They just went along with them. It was part of the go along, get along gang. I mean, come on, bro. Like,
D.C. was proposing, the D.C. school district was proposing.
Does anyone on the live stream remember during COVID that there was a Republican politician that fought against the lockdowns or really spoke out against it or really was a hero during that time? I don't remember that. Maybe I'm wrong, but please in the comments, if you remember that, please tell me.
Throwing out of school any child that was not vaccinated. And at the time, if I remember correctly, it was something like 40% of the African-American students in D.C. were not vaccinated. So we're talking about literally throwing out 40% of the kids at public school. And so I had a vote on the Senate floor to say, look, they can't throw kids out of school for this. And we ended up having a big argument, and part of the argument was home rule. where there was, and Susan was the most vocal Republican that's like, no, we have to let DC run. And I'm like, why? Constitution gives us the power to do it. And it ended up, by the way, every single Democrat, all of them, voted in favor of the DC public schools being able to throw out 40% of the black kids from school. And I said, look, you throw a kid out of school, you got a 14, 15-year-old boy, you throw him out of school, you know what's going to happen next. He's going to join a gang. He's going to engage in crimes. He's going to engage in drugs. He could be dead within 5 years if that kid doesn't get an education. And the Democrats were more than happy to say, we don't care. Right now, our religion is get the vaccine or to hell with you.
But can you see? I mean, again.
By the way, I looked it up. Ted Cruz got the vaccine. I don't know if I said that earlier, but I looked it up. He got the vaccine.
Once again, I couldn't agree with you more. But can you feel the frustration of people, including your voters, every American, at the emphasis on foreign countries and the threat we supposedly face?
I wonder if Tucker got the vaccine. Let me see. It says, according to Google, he didn't. Okay.
A lot of which is fake, obviously. Over the kind of slowly unfolding tragedy of what's happening to our country. The dollars spent, the aid packages to Ukraine to pay the retirement of civil servants in a country that we have nothing to do with, the endless support for Israel, very expensive, when people are literally buying groceries on credit in the United States. Can you feel like it's nothing against Ukraine or Israel or any other country?
All right, let's stop. You said the support for Israel very expensive. How much support do we give to Israel?
Well, you tell me. You vote for it.
Yeah, it's about $3 billion a year is the military.
It should be zero. Why are we giving all these other countries, what did he say, millions or billion?
Expensive. How much support do we give to Israel?
He said it like it wasn't that. How much support do we give? It not that much. You know, you're gonna call me out. You're gonna call that out. What is it? Can't be that much.
Well, you tell me. You vote for it.
Yeah, it's about $3 billion a year.
$3 billion a year. That is gross. Give them zero. Look at this sleazebag motherfucker. We can't even afford houses over here because corporations buy all the single-family homes and then want to rent them out to us and just bleed us and bend us over and fuck us in the ass. And then they're like, oh, how much do we give Israel? $3 billion a year. It's like you don't give a fuck about that, and you don't give a fuck about us at home, and like, because earlier when Tucker tried to say, oh, what about the domestic issues? He steered the conversation back to foreign affairs within like 30 to 45 seconds. Like he got quickly away from that. But to act like we give that country $3 billion a year and that's not a big deal is like crazy.
The military assistance.
Is that the only assistance?
Yeah, we just have military assistance. Israel does not have additional assistance. There's an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, and it's $3 billion a year.
So what is it costing to support the bombing campaign to protect Israel right now from Iran?
So I don't know right now, but I'll tell you this. Let's go back to the touchstone.
You don't know? I think I saw somewhere the other day that it's like $17 billion we've given Israel this year in the war. Let's see, Israel military aid this year. Ooh, you don't like that one, do you? In September 24, a package of 8.7 billion. With approximately $4 billion in military aid recently fast-tracked. A supplemental funding bill in April 24 included over $14 billion to help replenish their air defense aids. So in January, $8 billion, and then in April 2024, $14 billion. In January of this year, $8 billion. In addition to the $3 billion we already give them every year. So, dude, within the past year or less, we've given them what, $22 billion? Why? This is insane.
Foreign policy.
He's like,
American interest. Our support, our military support for Israel is massively in America's national security
Well, what
interest,
does it
and
cost?
it benefits us enormously.
Well, before we can make independent judgments about whether or not that's true, and I'm certainly open to it, I think we need to know what it costs. So what?
yeah, like, I'm with Tucker. You are voting for this shit and supporting this shit, yet you don't know how much it costs. And why is it like such a big deal to our national security threat? I don't buy that. And Tucker's actually gonna. I'm not a huge Tucker fan, but he actually does a good job from the first 30 to 45 minutes of this that I've seen of actually pressing Ted on this stuff. So.
What's the annual cost of defending Israel? Do you know?
$3 billion a year.
No, no, that's the aid. But I mean, the cost of the weapons, for example, the cost of U.S. personnel there, the cost of moving ships to the region, which we're doing right now, the cost of moving tankers to the region, all of that. Do we know what the cost is?
So look, the last week, I don't know. And there's some lag when the administration, under the Constitution, the commander-in-chief.
How about the last month, the last quarter, since the beginning of the year? Like, give us something. This last week, I don't know. It's like, what about before that? How much did we give them to do the strikes on Gaza and stuff? Come on, give us something.
Control of the armed forces. And so President Trump has made some decisions that we'll know the cost over time, but I don't know the last week. I don't have visibility on that.
Give us the last month.
The annual cost is $3 billion. It's a 10-year memorandum of understanding, and that's the principal driver of the cost. But let me make a point. We get massive benefits from Israel. Israel shares the Mossad is one of the best intelligence sources on the planet. The enemies of Israel, the people who hate Israel, they all hate us.
Who cares? I'm tired of hearing that shit. They probably oh man, I don't know.
It's almost a perfect overlap. And so if we tried to recreate, if we're just trying to defend America, we tried to recreate the national security benefits of our alliance with Israel, it would cost, I don't know, $30 billion, $300 billion.
So can you elaborate? And again, I'm going into this as someone who's always liked Israel and still does. But I also think at this point, given where we are, it's fair to ask rational questions about what the benefits are.
Good.
So does Mossad share all of its intelligence with us?
Oh, probably not, but they share a lot. We don't share all of our intelligence with them, but we share a lot. It's a close alliance.
Do they spy domestically in the United States?
Oh, they probably do, and we do as well. And friends and allies spy on each other. And I assume all of our allies spy on us.
And that's okay with you?
You know what? One of the things about being a conservative is that you're not naive and utopian. You don't think humans are all... Part of the reason socialism doesn't work is the mantra from each according to his abilities to each according to his needs doesn't work. As a conservative, I assume people act in their rational self-interest.
So it's conservative to pay people to spy on you?
It's conservative to recognize that human beings act in their own self-interest, and every one of our friends spies on us, and I'm not...
Do you like it? That's my question.
Do you like it?
They have motive to do. Of course they do. I understand that, and
by the way,
I'm not mad at them. But you're an American lawmaker, so I just want to know. Hold on, I want to know your attitude. Yeah. You said that your guiding principle, in fact, the only principle, the only criterion.
I said guiding, the overwhelming. I wouldn't say only.
Is it in America's interest? Is it in America's interest for Israel to spy on us, including on the president?
It is in America's interest to be closely allied with Israel because we get huge benefits for it. And you want to see the clearest...
But I just want to stop on the spying for a second. That it takes place, as you know, and including on the President of the United States and several precedents. And I just want to know if that's okay and why is it okay? Wouldn't an American lawmaker say to a client state, you're not allowed to spy on us? I'm sorry. I know why you want to. I'm not mad at you, but you're not allowed to.
Sure.
And I don't care for it. I don't want to be spied on by you. It's kind of weird not to say that, but you don't seem able to say that.
Sure, I would say don't spy on us. They're going to anyway. And by the way, the Brits are, the Canadians are. Like, I don't think...
Well, I'm not for that at all. Okay. I think it's disgusting. But we don't actually pay their... we're not their most
That's a good point. When we give you a bunch of fucking money, then you're going to spy on us? Like, what the fuck?
Sponsor. We're not sort of paying for the operations of the British government.
So I got to say, and this is... It's weird. We're talking about isolationists, the obsession with Israel. Why is Israel...
Well, I don't think I'm obsessed with Israel.
Okay, but I think
the alliance with them doesn't really make sense. And the fact that we give them that much money doesn't really make sense. So we're not obsessed. We just want answers.
People are, and like the question, Israel spies on us. Well, so does every other country. Why are you mad at Israel?
I guess. No. I'm hardly the one who's. I've never taken money from the Israel lobby. Have you?
Taken money from the Israel...
From AIPAC.
So AIPAC raises a lot of money for me, but it's actually a misnomer because the people who raise money are individuals. Right. So it's not the PAC itself, but they're individual members who believe in the American-Israeli friendship and relationship.
Is AIPAC a foreign lobby?
No, it's an American lobby. It's the AIPAC stands for the America-Israeli Political Action Committee.
What does it lobby for?
So, to be honest, not a whole lot effectively.
This is where they kind of go back and forth for a good 5 or 10 minutes about AIPAC, which I'm not super familiar, but it's the, American-Israeli something. They probably just said it, but it's very interesting how Cruz wants to step and tiptoe around. Tucker keeps, we'll see, but he keeps pressing him on. Are these people getting their direction from Israel? And Cruz doesn't want to directly say anyway, it's just like it's you know, he does a shake and dance here. He does not want to admit that AIPAC is basically like Israel lobbyists. Basically, he doesn't want to admit it.
Listen, I came into Congress 13 years ago with the stated intention of being the leading defender of Israel in the United States Senate.
Great.
And I've worked every day to do that. AIPAC, a lot of times.
Why? Why did you say that? Why was that your goal? That's weird. I thought you said America first in the beginning. Remember that?
AIPAC, I wish were much more effective. Like there are folks online who are in the fever swamp of terrified of AIPAC, and AIPAC.
I'm not terrified of AIPAC at all. You're the one who seems a little uncomfortable when I'm asking.
No,
this.
not uncomfortable at all.
I'm just asking what AIPAC does. My understanding, having known a lot of people who work at AIPAC, is that it lobbies on behalf of the Israeli government.
Wrong.
Oh, okay.
America has thousands of colleges and universities, and a lot of them, unfortunately, are basically just scams. It's one of those things nobody really wants to talk about, but everybody on some level knows that it's true. What's an impressive college in 2025? There aren't many. Education, buy the best in this as a collegehater.com to enroll for free.
When was the last time AIPAC took a position that deviated from Prime Minister Netanyahu?
All the time.
Name one.
Okay. Let me go back and give a little history. If you want to do a deep dive on AIPAC,
I don't. I want to do a shallow dive that gets.
No.
I want to get to the core question. AIPAC is lobbying for a foreign government, and I don't. It's not. It's lobbying for the United States.
It is lobbying for a strong U.S.-Israeli relationship.
Okay,
And
That means they're lobbying for Israel, right? Come on, bro.
so it's not has nothing to do with the foreign government.
it wants America and Israel to be closely allied.
Okay, but it's lobbying on behalf of the interests of another country.
So that's not true at all. And if
it's
you
not true.
No.
How much contact do you think AIPAC leaders have with the government of Israel?
No idea. I imagine some. I think the
Don't,
government.
aren't you interested to know and make sure everything's like not conflicted? Like they probably have a lot of contact with the top officials in Israel and the government. I mean, it's like, come on, dude. Who you trying to fool?
Israel is often frustrated with AIPAC
Do you think
because
there's
AIPAC's not nearly strong enough.
Do you think there's any coordination between the government of Israel and AIPAC?
Do they talk? Sure. If you're lobbying for more U.S.-Mexico trade, would you talk to people in the U.S. and Mexico and the government? Sure. Like if.
So I'm not mad about that. There are a million countries that lobby Washington. I like a lot of those countries, including Israel.
But AIPAC are Americans. They're not Israelis.
Hold on. There are tons of Americans who lobby on behalf of foreign governments. I know them. I'm related to some of them. I know how it works. I'm from here. So my question is not, is it outrageous that foreign governments lobby the United States? They all do, okay, including Israel. My only question is, why don't we admit that is what's happening? You're denying it, but it's true.
Yeah,
and
why
aren't they registered as a foreign lobby?
Because they're not.
They're not a forein lobby.
No, they're not. And this is that there's a fever swamp. Look,
it's not a fever swamp. These are very reasonable questions, and you've accused me of being obsessed with Israel, which I'm not.
I actually haven't. I've said
and being feverish about it, which I'm not at all. I find it's a very tender spot when you ask it, and I don't know why.
So, Tucker, all right, let's go back. I was first elected to the Senate in 2012. I came in Obama's second term. And I actually saw AIPAC be badly wounded in a way they never came back from. And the second term is when Obama did the Iran nuclear deal. And the Iran nuclear deal, I think, was catastrophic. And AIPAC went all in lobbying against it.
Yeah.
And they failed. And I was the leading opponent of the Iran nuclear deal.
Oh, I know. They definitely failed, yes.
They failed. And what happened, the Obama White House told every Democrat, when I got here, there used to be real bipartisan support for Israel. That has largely disappeared. And it's the Obama nuclear deal that caused it, because the Obama White House told every Democrat, pick. You either stand with Israel or you're a Democrat and you stand with the Obama White House. And almost every single Democrat member of Congress said, I'm a Democrat first, to hell with Israel. And then I watched as AIPAC, every one of those Democrats got reelected, and AIPAC did nothing about it. And it dramatically reduced AIPAC's influence.
I agree. I watched it happen.
And by the way, I told AIPAC, I said, look, the analogy, if the NRA was supporting a bunch of politicians and cared about the Second Amendment, and you had politicians that vote to confiscate people's guns, and the NRA turned around and raised money for the people who voted to confiscate guns, you know what? No one would ever care what they said again.
So you're making the case that AIPAC is not as powerful as people say it is, and I completely agree with you. I've watched that, and I'm not making the case that AIPAC is all powerful and they're running everything and putting fluoride in the water. I'm not making the case at all, because that's not true. I'm only trying to get to the question of what AIPAC is, and I don't think you're being straightforward about it. AIPAC is lobbying on behalf of the interests of a foreign country and they're not registered. And you're saying, no, that's not true. You're saying that they don't coordinate with the Israeli government.
Of course, I coordinate. They talk with them. I don't know what they do. I can
But
tell
why
you.
don't you
I
care?
don't know what they do. Don't you think that's important? If you're gonna make a claim that they don't coordinate with the government on an official level, you need to be. You're like, I don't know what they do. Okay, well, how can you say they don't do it then if you just say right now you don't know? I mean, come on, dude.
Isn't it meaningful
man.
if a foreign government?
Hey, I talk with Israel all the time. I talk
course you do.
with
Of course you
foreign
do.
countries all the time.
But the law is, and a lot of people have been prosecuted under this law, that if you are lobbying on behalf of foreign government, you must register. That's it. It's really simple. And I don't know why, if I'm working from Malaysia or Qatar or Belgium, and I'm working on behalf of its government's interests through a group of Americans who are representing the friendship between those two nations, I have to register under the Foreign Agent Registration Act. And if I don't, I can go to jail. And people have gone to jail, including people I know. So I don't understand why we don't just be honest and say they're lobbying on behalf of foreign government. They're coordinating with the government. You know that that's true.
Basically, if there's I think everyone knows this, but if there's rules for lobbyists, why are they not following the rules? I mean,
Not
come
only
on,
not
dude.
true, that is false.
They're not coordinating with the Israeli government.
Do you know how AIPAC raises
How
money?
can you say it's false if you say they don't? You just said they don't know like a minute ago.
For elected officials, like what they do, like what the actual mechanics is?
I mean, they go to people who are sympathetic to Israel and raise money and then send it to candidates who
wrong.
agree with them.
So what they'll do is, so in my last election, AIPAC endorsed me. And they'll host a fundraiser. And they'll host a fundraiser in Dallas or Houston or Atlanta or New York or LA. And they'll do a fundraiser and they'll get someone who will host it. And it's usually a business owner, lawyer, doctor, someone who hosts it. And you'll get typically at an AIPAC fundraiser 30, 40, 50, maybe 100 people who live in that city.
Right.
Who care about a strong U.S.-Israel relationship.
Yeah.
And if they have, 50 people, each of them writes a $1,000 check and you raise $50,000.
Yeah, I've
That's-
been to an APAC fundraiser. I know what it looks like.
But that is not, and by the way, there's no representative of the Israeli government there. You have, when you're in Dallas,
This
you're
is
meeting
such a
with...
false and silly conversation. I know all this. The question is are AIPAC's goals shaped by the goals of the Israeli government to any extent?
Okay,
That's
that's
a really
different
simple
from
question.
lobbying
It's
on
a-
behalf of.
It's a simple question. Are
Is it?
AIPAC's
What is the difference of? That's like saying if I have two friends that are in a dispute and I talk to one about it and then I go to the other one and try to be the middle ground and I might not be speaking on behalf of the other friend, but it's like I'm influenced. It's just a real slippery slope. And even friend two, if I go to friend one and get their side of the story, and then I go to friend two, if I'm not very careful about what I'm doing, they're like, "Oh, you picked their side." I mean, that's like gonna be one of the first things they think. So it's like he's really dealing with semantics, and what he's saying can be true, but it's a very, very slippery slope. And it's like, who is your allegiance truly to? Neither, both. And if it's more one than the other, it's alarming if it's more Israel, because then you're basically an Israeli lobbyist, and you should be following the same rules as other foreign country lobbyists. So, this is really getting into the weeds of politics, which I don't really care about getting that deep into the bullshit. I kind of like staying on somewhat of a surface or a medium level where I can just call out like obvious lies and show the obvious hypocrisy. But anyway, I'm riding with Tucker on this point. Basically, what I'm saying.
goals shaped by the goals of the Israeli government.
And I feel like they stay on this quite a while, so we'll see if this. We'll see if we want to skip ahead with this. It might be a little long-winded for this point, which I don't really care too much about getting deep in the weeds on.
I'm just going to ask you a question straightforwardly, and if you say no, I think we both know that's not true.
Okay, are they shaped by? Is that?
Are they coordinating with the Israeli government?
Are they talking
to
with them?
represent
Yes.
the
Is
Israeli
Israel
government?
directing them? You want to talk about FARA? The law on lobbying on behalf of someone.
Yeah.
It is, I hire you and you lobby on behalf of me. I direct you. Does Israel direct AIPAC? No, they are not lobbying on behalf of them. Do they care about them? Yes, but
do you think that it's just interesting because what you're now describing in a very defensive way, I will say, is.
But if you're already an Israeli loyalist, that's dangerous, because even though they're not directly paying you and directly telling you what to do, if you're still more loyal to them, that's still concerning. And you could make the argument, which I don't know, but this could, let's just say hypothetically, what if Israel's paying them under the table, or there's some kind of a backhanded deal where they are actually loyal to them and are actually getting their directives from Israel? It just seems real shady.
Foreign influence over our politics.
no.
And you began, and it's so transparently obvious to everybody, I don't know why you would be embarrassed of it. You've said that you are sincerely for Israel. I believe you. I don't think you have some weird agenda. You seem to be sincere.
By the way, Tucker, it's a very weird thing. The obsession with Israel, when we're talking about foreign countries,
it's hardly an obsession.
You're not talking about Chinese, you're not talking about Japanese, you're not talking about the Brits, you're not talking about the French. The question, what about the Jews? What about the Jews?
Oh, I'm an anti-Semite now. Senator,
you're asking the questions, Tucker. You're asking, why are the Jews controlling our foreign policy?
Senator,
that's what you just asked.
Hardly saying that.
That is not what he said.
That is exactly what you just said.
Well, actually, I can speak for myself and tell you what I am saying.
Good.
On behalf not simply of myself, but on my many Jewish friends who would have the same questions, which is to what extent, and it's interesting you're trying to derail my questions by calling me an anti-Semite, which you are.
I did not.
Of course you are.
Now they're both accusing each other of saying things they didn't really say. Oh, man. Typical political bullshit here.
Other than be honorable enough to say it right to my face,
you're a raging anti-dentite.
Sleazy feline way implying it, or just asking questions about the Jews. I'm not asking questions.
Sleazy feline way.
You are in a sleazy feline way implying it, or just asking questions about the Jews. I'm not asking questions about the Jews. There's nothing to do with Jews or Judaism. It has to do with the foreign government.
Isn't Israel controlling our foreign policy? That's not about the Jews.
You said, I'm asking you.
And by the way, you're the one that just called me, I think, a sleazy feline. So let's be clear.
It's sleazy to imply that I'm an anti-Semite, which you just did.
No, I just said, why is that the only question you're asking? You answer it. Give me another reason. If you're not an anti-Semite, give me another reason why the obsession is Israel.
I am in no sense obsessed with Israel. We are on the brink of war with Iran, and so these are valid questions.
But you're not asking about Iran or the
If I can finish, you asked me why I'm obsessed with Israel.
Yep.
3 minutes after telling me that when you first ran for Congress, you elucidated one of your main goals, which is to defend Israel.
Yes.
And I'm the one who's obsessed with Israel. I don't see a lawmaker's job as defending the interests of a foreign government, period. Okay. Any government, including the ones that my ancestors come from. So that's my position. That does not make me an anti-Semite. And shame on you for suggesting otherwise. And I mean that.
Shame on you.
You know it's low. So why don't you just answer my questions
I'll answer
in a straightforward, rational way? You certainly have the IQ to do it.
So shame on you is cute, by the way, Tucker.
It is. It's not cute. I'm offended. I'm obsessed with the Jews. You just told me
you just called me a sleazy feline.
It is sleazy to imply that I'm an anti-Semite for asking questions about how my government is run.
You want to count how many questions you asked about? What about the Jews? What about Israel? What about AIPAC?
I never asked about the Jews. This has nothing to do with the Jews, whatever that means.
To be fair, he didn't.
This has to do with a foreign government. And once again, shame on you for conflating the two. They have nothing to do with each other.
He said, shame on you is cute.
I'm talking about the influence of
Israel and Jews have nothing to do with each other?
All Jews, or an attack on all Jews, which I am not, nor would I ever be undertaking now. I'm not attacking anybody.
By the way, that's who Iran wants to kill, is all the Jews and all the Americans.
And I'm totally opposed to that, okay? But now, because
Except you don't want to do anything about it.
Decisions need to be made.
We can talk about those decisions.
And I plan to.
Good.
But I just want to get a sense of whether you think, having described yourself as an America First person whose only criterion for judgment on foreign policy is America's national interest, to what extent you're influenced by a foreign government, which gives you a lot of money through its lobby, and you're claiming this has nothing to do with the foreign government. They're not coordinating. Yes, they're spying on us, but it doesn't bother you. And I'm sort of wondering, like, what is this? This is one of the weirdest conversations I've ever had.
I'll tell you what, and I'll answer any question you like, but let's try to...
Are you going to call me an anti-Semite again, or no?
Let's try to ratchet down the temperature a little.
You're the one who went to motive.
Let's ratchet this down a little bit.
I'm asking honest questions.
I'm
just asking questions. Yes, that's it. That is what I'm doing.
Let's try to ratchet down the temperature a little bit.
Picture the house of your dreams. Maybe it's got an outdoor pool, a huge front flag, maybe the highest quality, with plans from just talk.com.
It's a great movie. It's actually a fun comedy.
Give me a second. I'm gonna hit the restroom. I'll be right back. Give me about a minute, and then we'll get back into it. It's actually going pretty good. I'll probably push for doing the whole video. And that way, another night this week, I can get into something else, another topic. But so far, so good. I think there's some really good topics coming up. We got, does Israel benefit from funding the U.S.? I mean, come on. We have what happens next in Iran. What is an isolationist? Might skip over that. Iranian assassins trying to kill Trump. That's a good one. Cruz refuses to apologize for supporting the disastrous Ukraine-Russia war. So we'll see. Some more good topics coming up. Give me a second. I'm going to hit the restroom, and then we'll get back into it. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. Where, as I said, we got some decent, I think, uh, some decent topics so far, and I've had a little bit of decent dialogue, but I feel like the better topics are on the second half, and hopefully there'll be even more dialogue and things for me to kind of give my opinion on and you know, dissect, so to speak. If y'all have any comments, agree, disagree with anything they're saying, agree, disagree with anything I'm saying, or have a new point of view on this interview, feel free to jump in the comments and let me know. Or if you have any constructive criticism on the stream, something I can be doing better, I would love to hear it. So appreciate everyone for tuning in, and let's get back into it.
About politics. And Eddie Murphy in the movie is a con man who gets elected to Congress. And he's literally a con man who, the congressman dies, he has the same name, and so he runs and they get elected. And there's a scene in the movie where Eddie Murphy is a freshman member of Congress, and he's sitting down with a sleazy lobbyist. And he's asking the lobbyist, all right, what should my positions be on, I think they were talking about power plants and electrical transmission lines. And the lobbyist's like, well, what do you believe?
Oh.
And Eddie Murphy's comment said, I don't care. Whatever gets me the most money. I'll do whatever gets me the most money. And the lobbyist says, no. Pick a side. Doesn't matter what you pick. If you pick one side, we'll go shake down everyone who supports that side and they'll give you money. If you pick the other side, that's fine. We'll just go to the other side and shake down that. That's a little bit the way it works. And you often get leftists in the media who say, for example...
No, there's not shakedowns in the government. Come on, Ted.
If you support the Second Amendment, as you do and I do, well, you're just bought and paid for by the NRA. And that actually is backwards. I believe in the Second Amendment because I believe in the Constitution. Now, am I proud that the NRA supports me? Sure, because people who care about the Second Amendment want to support leaders who fight for it. But it gets it backward. Look, AIPAC, when I ran for the Senate, AIPAC didn't support me. I supported Israel before they supported me. I'm happy to have their support because they share my objective.
No, but you're missing it. I'm not suggesting that you're bought and paid for. I'm not saying that. I want to go back and take sincere.
I want to go back and take the transcript because you just said a minute.
I think you're bought and paid for.
Ago, are you? I'm slightly paraphrasing, but are you lobbying for a foreign government because they pay you a lot of money? That's basically what you said. So you are suggesting that.
Let me just be clear about what I think. Your views seem totally sincere.
Yes.
You take money from people who agree with you.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I even take money from people who disagree with me.
I'm only trying to get to the...
I even take money from people who disagree with me. Why would you do that? You're going to vote for something they want you to vote for. If that's not bought and paid for, I don't know what is.
Question.
You want to get that one more time?
I'm totally sincere.
Yes.
You take money from people who agree with you.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I even
take money from people who disagree with me.
I even take money from people who disagree with me.
Only trying to get to the question of to what extent is the U.S. government influenced by other governments? And it's a lot.
Of course.
It's hardly just Israel. It's hardly just Israel. I don't think Israel's the main one. There are lots of governments. China is a massive influence on the city.
And it's a huge problem.
As you know, I couldn't agree more. And there are lots of other. The U.K., which is a truly sinister place, in my opinion, as a ethnic Brit, I can say. I think that's my view. Maybe you disagree.
I think they're on the wrong path. I love the Brits, but their government
without even getting into that. I'm just saying I don't think Israel's the only one. But it's the only one where you're instantly called an anti-Semite for asking questions. And it's also the only government that no one will ever criticize. And I find
that's true. They're very defensive about criticizing Israel, and they're quick to pull out the anti-Semitism. But you don't hear about that about like any other thing where they have a specific word for it. It's like they're very defensive.
Criticize Israel every minute of every day. Like the only government that people will not criticize, Rashida Tlaib just tweeted out calling Benjamin Netanyahu a war criminal.
Rashida Tlaib? No.
You said no one will criticize.
No, I'm talking about Republicans that I would vote for, including you. And I'm saying, whatever. I don't even like talking about Israel. What I care about, I never do because it's not worth being called anti-Semites from AIPAC recipients. But now we are on the verge of joining a war.
Burn.
And I just want to be clear about why we're doing this.
All right, so...
I feel like everybody feels like that.
Let's get into Iran momentarily, but you suggested it was a strange thing that I said a minute ago that when I came into the Senate, I resolved that I was going to be the leading defender of Israel. And what you didn't ask is why. So let me tell you why.
No, you said I was obsessed with Israel, and you had just told me that like your driving motive to get to the Senate was to defend Israel. I'm like, I don't think I'm the one who's obsessed with Israel.
Okay,
I don't even think about Israel.
Tucker, words matter.
Uh-huh.
And you know that. I said I resolved to be the leading defender of Israel, and you said your driving motive, the reason you're in the Senate.
You want to be the leading defender of Israel. I would think if I ran for Senate, I'd be like, there are people dying of drug ODs on the street.
My driving motive is to fight for Texas and America and to fight for jobs and to fight for the Constitution.
Okay. Yeah, you're a real people's champ. Where were you fighting for us during COVID? You fucking slimy feline.
Constitution. And you played a very, very careful word game of eliding
You're the one who said it, not me.
So you still haven't asked why, but I'm going to tell you why.
Please.
Okay.
And the reason is twofold. Number one, as a Christian, growing up in Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel.
I don't care about that chicken shit. The Bible has some good stuff in it, and it has some stuff in it that I don't fuck with. Just because it says it doesn't mean I'm just going to automatically just take it down like medicine that I have to take. Those who bless Israel will be blessed. I don't fuck with that. I don't give a fuck. If you start doing wrong, crooked shit, we should not support that. That's like a free pass for like, nobody's right all the freaking time. So when someone does something wrong, they need to be called out. They need to be corrected. And we can do that in a loving way. But to just say, if you bless this person, you'll be blessed. Well, what if that person's... Get the fuck out of here, fly. What if that person or country or whatever starts doing something wrong? You have to call them out. You can't just continue fucking servicing them. I mean, come on, dude. The Bible Christian. That's debatable. It's debatable if Christians are always morally correct. But for him to be like, I'm a Christian, and it says in the Bible, it's like, who gives a fuck?
Israel will be cursed. And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
Of those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of, it says the nation of Israel. So that's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the scripture off the tip of my...
I looked it up the other day when I think this was about as far as I had gotten in this video the other day when I was watching it in prep for this. I was going to take out timestamps and try to pick only the good parts to watch of this, but there were so many good parts, I felt like it was worth watching the whole thing. But I believe it said it was in Genesis, so I'm pretty sure it is in the Bible. So anyway, just in case anyone was wondering.
You pull out the phone and use the
It's in Genesis, but
okay,
so
there you
you're
go.
quoting a Bible phrase. You don't have context for it, and you don't know where in the Bible it is, but that's like theology? I'm confused. What does that even mean?
Tucker.
Whoa, there you go. Pull out the big guns. How are you going to say you believe in something and that's part of the foundation of your belief? You don't even know where it is. I mean, you can remember reading it or hearing it and not remember exactly where it is, but that's almost akin to when Trump's like selling Bibles and then we'll turn around and years later get asked what his favorite verse in the Bible is and he can't name one. He can't even name one. So that's a little bit worse than this and a little bit different, but it's in a similar type of vein.
I'm a Christian. I want to know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Oh.
Where does my support for Israel come from? Number one, because biblically we're commanded to
Tucker, listen to me. I have a pinky ring on. Tucker, calm down.
support Israel. But number two,
Hold on.
I'm not holding on.
Hold on. You're a senator, and now you're throwing out theology, and I am a Christian, and I am allowed to weigh in on this. We are commanded as Christians to support the government of Israel?
We are commanded to support Israel, and what
does that mean, Israel?
We're told those who bless Israel will be blessed.
But what? Hold on. Define Israel. This is important. Are you kidding? This is a majority Christian country.
Define Israel. Do you not know what Israel is? That would be the country you've asked like 49 questions about.
So that's what Genesis. That's what God is talking about.
The nation of Israel. Yes.
And so is that the current borders, the current leadership? He's talking about the political entity called Israel.
He's talking.
Yeah, is he talking about the country, the government, or just the people, the Jews? Who is he talking about? Look at Cruz.
About the nation of Israel. Yeah, nations exist, and he's discussing a nation. A nation was the people of Israel.
Is the nation?
What about when that nation didn't exist for however many years? Because before World War II, there was no Israel. There was in the far past, but for I don't know how many years, there was no nation. So what about then? Why? Like, come on, bro.
God's referring to in Genesis, is that the same as the country run by Benjamin Netanyahu right now?
Yes.
It is. Okay.
And by the way, it's not run by Benjamin Netanyahu as a dictator. It's a democratic country that elected.
He's the prime minister.
Right.
What?
But just like, America is the country run by Donald Trump. No, actually, the American people elected Donald Trump. The same principle
This is silly. I'm talking about the political entity of modern Israel.
Yes, and that is
You believe
Israel.
that's what God was talking about in Genesis.
I do, but
that country's existed since when?
For thousands of years. Now, there was a time when it didn't exist, and then it was recreated just over 70 years ago.
I'm saying, I think most people understand that line in Genesis to refer to
the Jewish people,
God's chosen people.
Right.
That's not what it says.
Okay, Israel, but you don't even know where in the Bible it is. So I don't know if we can...
I don't remember the scriptural citation. But, okay,
It's like Genesis 16 or something like that. But yes, it's in the earlier part of the book. But the point is...
All right, Tucker, you keep interrupting me before I finish my sentence.
It's just important to know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're... So you're saying as a Christian, if I believe in Jesus, I have to support the modern state of Israel?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm explaining for me what my motivation is.
But okay, so I'm just trying to understand. You said God tells you to support the modern state of Israel in the Bible, in some place in the Bible that you heard about, but you don't know where it is. That's your theology?
You're going back, am I a sleazy feline again? I mean,
if you accuse me of anti-Semitism again, I will say that, but I don't think you will.
Try to be a little less condescending. I'm trying to have a conversation.
Condescending. You're throwing this stuff out, and it's my job to figure out what you're talking about. Okay, but I don't understand.
But you're not letting me.
Okay. I'm sorry. I want to be polite.
That is, for me, a personal motivation. But I also, what I was about to say, I don't believe my personal faith, not everyone who I represent is a Christian. It's not an argument for me to give that we should do this because of my faith. And so as an elected official, I don't give that as the reason we should support Israel.
What is your reason?
That is a personal motivation for me, but I don't think it is the reason we should. The reason that I am the leading defender of Israel is because Israel is our strongest ally in the Middle East, an incredibly troubled.
Who cares about the Middle East? I don't give a fuck if they just blow a hole in the Middle East. I mean, I'm exaggerating because I don't want innocent people to die, but that piece of land, I don't give a fuck about that. Who cares, dude?
Part of the world, and supporting Israel benefits America. And the clearest.
What are the facts of that? What is the proof for that? That supporting Israel benefits us? It is the argument that if Israel is strong, then the terrorist organizations and the dictators and the crooked people in the Middle East won't succeed and won't be there. And we won't have to. That has been proven to be false. We have been in the Middle East at war since 2001. And did we just recently finish fighting over there? And now we're back over there? It's like, dude, them being strong over there has not helped us. It has been to our detriment. So that argument that them being strong in the Middle East is like us having a real strong base over there and a real strong ally, and therefore there won't be a bunch of bullshit going on over there, and they'll kind of keep a check over it. That has been proven to be false over the past 25 or 30 years. So that is false. So fuck off.
Illustration of that is what is happening right now. Let me just make this point, and then
and then I'll just ask.
Please feel free to chime in the comments and let me know what y'all think. I don't know if y'all have a Rumble account. It might be a little difficult to make one, or hassle you don't want to deal with. But if you have a Rumble account and you're a regular Rumble viewer, please feel free to get in the comments and let me know what you think. If you're enjoying the stream or what have you, I appreciate the comment.
What you mean? That's it. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you for everyone that's tuning in, especially if you came over from YouTube and the stream shut down. I appreciate y'all. So thanks for tuning in.
Look. Iran, I think the most acute national security threat facing America right now is the threat of a nuclear Iran. I think China is the biggest long-term threat, but
dude, if Russia and China and North Korea already have nukes, why are we so fucking worried about Iran? It's bullshit. Bullshit. I feel like Bill Mitchell, kind of an old senior employee that my brother knew at one of his plumbing companies. He would say that kind of like, old grumpy type of. He was a nice guy and like cool, but when he would get kind of. What am I trying to say? Riled up or whatever. He's going, bullshit.
Acute and near term is a nuclear Iran.
Okay.
And I think Israel is doing a massive favor to America right now by trying to take out Iran's nuclear capacity. And
they're doing themselves a favor, not us. Come on, bro.
The reason I view Iran differently. We talked before about Iraq. I opposed the Iraq war. We talked about Syria. I opposed military intervention in Syria. The reason for that is those did not.
If Israel was holding us down over there, why'd we even have to fucking go to those places? Come on, dude.
Pose a threat to the United States. I think Iran is markedly different. Number one, the Ayatollah is a religious zealot. He is a lunatic, but a particularly dangerous kind of lunatic because he's driven by religious fervor. When he says death to America and death to Israel, I believe him. And I think Iran is trying to get a nuclear weapon because there is a very real possibility.
There's a friggin' video that I should have showed. I might show it here at the end or something, where Netanyahu has been warning us that Iran is 3 to 6 months to a year away from getting nukes. He has been saying that for 30 fucking years. Iran cannot have nuclear. And he's been saying that shit for 30 fucking years. So that is a fucking lie.
They would use a nuclear weapon. So you want to ask, how does supporting Israel benefit us? Right now, this tiny little country, the size of the state of New Jersey, is fighting our enemies for us and taking out their
They're doing a piss poor fucking job.
Military leadership and trying to take out their nuclear capacity. That makes America much safer.
So the president has said repeatedly Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon,
Yes.
and he will do whatever it takes to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. He said that like 100 times. He clearly means it. I think he will use force to effect that if he feels he has to. I think he's been really clear about that. I don't know, but it seems that way. Do you feel it? Do you think that's correct?
Whether he would use force to stop a nuclear weapon, I think he is.
We already have. We're bombing them. Hello. Come on.
Put that option on the
He
table.
certainly suggested. I mean, I have literally
He's
no
put that
idea
option
what's
on
going to
the table.
happen, but just reading his statements, he's made that really clear.
So what he has been very clear about, and I spoke with the president on Sunday, is he has been very clear to Iran that if they attack U.S. servicemen and women,
Of
there
course,
will be real
that goes without
consequences
saying.
and I think very serious military
By the way, this is a sidebar, but I just can't resist. The Prime Minister of Israel said that Iran tried to assassinate Donald Trump twice.
Yeah, I read your newsletter this morning, and
But do you believe that's true?
again, I think it was sort of a word game. What is true is Iran is trying to assassinate Donald J. Trump, and they have hired hitmen. Now, you pointed out...
No, he said that they have tried twice to kill him, and I don't know that, I don't have any evidence that's true, but I sort of wonder if that is true. Why aren't we at war with them already?
Okay, and I read your newsletter this morning, and I thought it was playing word games to draw a political point.
How's that a word game? It's my president. And if
Can
they
I tell
try-
you?
Yeah, please.
Okay. You rightly pointed out there's no evidence that this clown in Butler, Pennsylvania, who shot the president was working for the Iranians. I don't think he was. There's no evidence of that. Although I would like to know more about
I
who
agree.
he was and what's
I
going
totally
on.
agree.
But I don't...
Yeah, how come we can't find out anything about this guy who tried to assassinate Trump? I mean, that was a fucking sham. And if you haven't seen it, excuse me, there was a Senate hearing about that where they admitted all the times they failed. It was unbelievable. You would have to be a Barney Fife fucking loser of a fucking cop, federal agent, Secret Service, et cetera, all the people that were on site that day. You would have to be a schmuck of a Michael Scarn, dumbass fucking loser to fail as many times as they failed on that day. You should all be ashamed of yourselves. It's so shameful that it like, if they failed that many times, everybody that was there should be fired. Like, it is unbelievable they failed on that many levels that day. And I did a live stream. It's probably like a year old now, or maybe even a little older, but you can go find it. And if y'all can go to my page and find it, but if enough of y'all comment in the comments, I'll go find it and put the link in the description. I did a breakdown over that, and you can see all the times they failed. It's unbelievable how many times we failed in that one day and how many areas we failed in that one day. It almost makes that assassination attempt seem non-legitimate. Like, it takes a lot for you to believe that was legitimate at this point, in my eyes.
find it plausible that he was working for the Iranians. So, was that caused by the Iranians? No. But what is true, and what your newsletter
And we don't know much about him. How can we say that he wasn't?
didn't acknowledge, is it true or false that Iran is currently trying to murder Donald J. Trump and has paid hitmen to do so?
Well, that's the question, and I don't know the Butler, Pennsylvania thing.
Butler, Pennsylvania.
Let's just put that aside. I don't know.
So Netanyahu misspoke when he said those two assassinations were because of Iran. But what he was saying that is right is they're actively trying to murder Donald J. Trump.
Is there?
What is the evidence?
Okay, so you're aware of a
Yes.
plot to kill Trump?
Yes, that Iran is paying for. And by the way,
Wait, when?
it has been over the last, I'd say, 18 months to 2 years.
In the United States?
In the United States, yes. And let me point out,
Has anyone been arrested?
for the Trump attempted assassination,
Wow. You're aware of the threat. It's been going on for 18 months to 2 years. No arrest. Come on. That was a damn good question by Tucker.
no, but they are also actively paying Iranian hitmen to murder Mike Pompeo when he was President Trump's first Secretary of State, the first term rather, John Bolton when John Bolton was National Security Advisor to President Trump, and a guy named Brian Hook, who was Assistant Secretary of State.
Right.
During the Biden
Wait,
administration.
but hold on. Can we go back to Donald Trump because he's the president? No, it's a big deal. What do you mean? When no one has been arrested for these assassination
They have.
attempts on Trump.
Yes.
They've hired hitmen. How do we know that?
All right, let me break it
Hold
down.
on.
People have been arrested. So the reason I brought up Pompeo, Bolton, and Hook, who are under active assassination attempts because of their service in the first Trump administration, under the Biden
Well, they
administration.
say that. I've never seen any evidence of it.
Can I
Maybe-
give you the evidence?
Well, let's just stick with Trump.
No, because these are interrelated. So let me make a bloody point. Under the Biden administration, the State Department was spending $2 million a month providing security for Pompeo, Bolton, and Hook. And they did arrest Iranian hitmen at John Bolton's apartment complex who rented, I think, the apartment next to him and were actively trying to assassinate him, and they went and arrested them. So, yes, they caught Iranian hitmen. Now, it so happens Iran's not very good at it. And so they are actively trying. And in fact,
Why did you name 3 different people that were supposedly arrested, and then you only named, or 3 different people that were under assassination attempts, but you only could name 1 arrest that were made in regards to one of them? What about people that were trying to assassinate the other 2 that got arrested? Like, why name all 3 of those people and then only talk about a group of people that are arrested that were trying to assassinate one of them? Like, what was the point of bringing up the other 2? And like, where's the, like, let's get, like Tucker said, let's get back to Trump. Where's the people that are trying to kill Trump?
He's the president. If there's a plot to kill Trump by the Iranians,
okay, so you dispute that the Iranians are trying to kill Trump?
Of course. I mean, that's the most important question. The prime minister of Israel just said there have been 2 assassination attempts against Donald Trump by the Iranians. And I think it's a very fair question. Maybe you disagree, to ask, what are you talking about?
Okay. And I agree with you that he misspoke.
So there weren't those 2 attempts?
There were 2 attempts, but the clown in Butler, Pennsylvania, and the other guy on the golf course were not connected to the Iranians. That's the part that he misspoke. But by the way, when you speak all the time, occasionally, what he said that was accurate is that Iran is actively trying to murder Donald J. Trump and has paid hitmen.
But you agreed that there was 2 different attempts. When were those? Where are the arrests? Come on, dude.
Okay, but okay, that's fine.
And he was conflating it with the 2 attempts.
I understand. But I just want to pull that thread because it's so important. I voted for Donald Trump. I campaigned for Donald Trump. Yeah. He's our president. And we're on the cusp of a war. So if there's evidence that Iran paid hitmen to kill Donald Trump and is currently doing that, where's the, like, what are you even talking? I've never heard that before.
Okay.
Where's the evidence? Who are these people? Why haven't they been arrested? Why are we not at war with them?
Okay. You've never heard that? Yeah, we've heard it. What's the evidence? Cocksucker?
That's a great question to ask.
How do you know that that's true?
We know that it's true because we have been told that by the military and our intelligence community for the last 2 years.
We meaning who?
Congress has, and the public. I mean, we had multiple testimonies. I can send you testimony.
Do we know the names of the people or where this happened or what they tried to do to kill Trump?
We do not.
I want to know who is on the video switcher that's switching back between the 2 camera angles, or if it's automated. Because sometimes you can tell they're about to switch back, but then they cancel it because the other person's still talking. So just kind of a, you know, a behind the scenes kind of thing that I've noticed. I feel like the video keeps glitching out, but I noticed they have 2 camera angles and they're trying to keep it on whoever's talking, and sometimes it's a real back and forth conversation. So just on the techie and the kind of nerdy thing that I kind of pick up on because I'm interested in that sort of stuff. Just interesting. I wonder if there's like an actual person switching back and forth between the camera angles or if it's automated. So anyway, just a thought.
We have not apprehended an Iranian hitman trying to kill him. We know that Iran is trying to do so.
In the United States?
Yes. And by the way, like Iran...
This just seems like a huge headline, and you're acting like everyone knows this. I didn't know that.
Iran put out a whole video about murdering Trump.
Right, but I've never heard evidence that there are hitmen in the United States. I mean, trying to kill Trump right now, we should like have a nationwide dragnet on this, and we should attack Iran immediately if that's true.
Exactly.
No.
If they're trying to assassinate our president?
They have been for 2 years.
Then why aren't we at war with them?
Well, we are trying to
Why don't we just nuke Tehran if they're trying to murder our president? There's nothing that you could do that would be worse for the United States than murdering Trump. And I just don't understand why you're not calling for the use of nuclear weapons against the Ayatollah right now. I'm serious. If you really believe they're trying to murder...
The use of nuclear weapons... See,
whatever
that's part of the problem of...
So what do you mean? You don't seem to take the allegations seriously. I do. If you believe they're trying to murder Trump, we need to stop what we're doing and punish them.
Can I ask something? And I mean this sincerely. So... All right.
Here's a slimy feline trying to... Now, he's still not answering what evidence they have that they're trying to kill Trump.
20 years ago, you were, I think it's fair to say, in the interventionist world. You were a vocal...
Big time.
You were a vocal defender of the Iraq War.
I was a promoter of the Iraq War.
And you now... And look, I think you were mistaken. I think you were mistaken. That's okay. Look, people change and learn, and that's part of the journey of being human. Your views have moved, though. In my view, they've gone way too far the other end. And so I'm just
totally confused.
why.
I'm saying, hold on. Wait, this is one of the weirdest conversations I've ever had. I'm saying if it's true that Iran is trying to murder Trump, we need to move militarily against Iran immediately. That's not isolationism. That's that's a call to violence, which I am calling for. If we believe that Iran is trying to murder our president, we need to strike Iran.
Okay, but isolationists say things like, well, then just nuke them, which is what you just said, which is kind of a weird...
Because I'm upset, because I'm taking you seriously. You don't take your own statements seriously.
I take my statements very seriously.
So I've asked you, where's the evidence this is true? And you said, well, they're trying to assassinate Brian Hook or something, which I'm against, by the way. I'm against hurting any American, period, no matter...
So you dispute that they're trying to murder...
I'm not disputing it at all.
We want to know the evidence. You're disputing it? Yeah, I am disputing it, motherfucker. Where's the evidence? Pussy.
I'm not
I
disputing
mean,
it
they
at all.
literally arrested the hitman with Bolton.
I don't know why that's even relevant. I'm asking about the president of the United States.
Wait, it's not relevant that Iran
not
hired hitmen to murder cabinet members in Trump's administration. That doesn't go to
I've
how
already
credible
said
is it that they're willing to spend money to do
totally
that.
opposed to that. It's awful. I am against killing anybody, actually, and
Okay, I'm
especially
not.
foreign government. Okay. I'm asking about your allegation and the Prime Minister of Israel's allegation that is
Let me be
that
clear,
Iran
I'm
is trying to
emphatically for
murder the
killing our enemies.
president.
Killing terrorists is a good thing. Killing people who are trying to murder Americans is a good thing. Because if you're America first, you want to protect America. And so killing Osama bin Laden was a fantastic
But you don't
day
really
for the
believe
world.
that they're trying to murder Trump, or you
Yes, I do. Yes,
then,
I do.
Then why aren't you calling for military action against Iran right now?
Because they're not very effective. In terms of hitmen, their hitmen are not very effective. I do think...
Oh, so they're hitmen, but not the bad kind, the efficient kind?
No,
Like, what are you
just,
saying?
They're a weak country who is on its knees, and I think we need to...
Then why are we so afraid of them? Why are they the biggest threat if they're a weak country?
What if they
that's-
hire hitmen from other countries that are efficient? What if they hire Russians or Chinese, or they make a deal? Like, this is a big deal. It almost, like, I like Tucker's line of questioning and line of thinking. It's almost like, this is not legitimate, or you'd be more concerned about it. Come on now.
It's on its knees.
Because they're trying...
I'm trying to keep track.
They're trying to develop... Be a little less snarky.
I know, you're right. That is a problem that I have. I'm sorry.
They're trying to develop nuclear weapons. They are close to developing nuclear weapons. And even a weak country with a nuclear weapon... Look, I believe there is a very real possibility if the Ayatollah develops a nuclear weapon that he would detonate it either in Tel Aviv or New York or Los Angeles. And that would be utterly catastrophic. And
That's
I don't
for
know what the
sure.
chances are of that. Let me compare and contrast Iran to North Korea.
Wait, can I just ask one last question
Sure.
about trying to
You
kill
can ask
the
any-
president? You sincerely believe, you promise, that right now the Iranian government is trying to murder our
Yes.
president.
Yes.
You sincerely believe right now.
Absolutely.
And yet you are not calling for military action against the government that's trying to murder our president. Can you explain that?
I don't
know,
think
I
they're very
can't.
effective. I do think we should... By the way, America is
You're willing to take that risk?
What if they hire assassins from other countries that are effective? I mean, if they have enough money to get nuclear and all this kind of stuff, they could surely hire someone who is effective. I mean, dude, what is the thought process here? Tucker, when I put my hand out like this and I wave my hands around, listen to me, Tucker.
I think we should protect the president and we should take out our enemies.
Well, aren't
Israel
they,
is doing that right now.
but aren't they? Why would we outsource
And by
it to
the
Israel
way,
if
your
they're
first
trying
question
to?
was,
why
why
would
are
we
you
have
for
Israel
regime
do it?
change? That's a pretty good example of why I'm for regime change.
Okay, so you're saying we should just go in and take out the government of Iran. Why
No.
would we outsource it to Israel if they're trying to murder our president? Okay, you sound like the isolationist.
What I'm saying on any military judgment is there needs to be a cost-benefit analysis of what are the risks versus what are the benefits. In this instance, I think it is enormously in America's interest to do what Israel is doing right now, take out Iran's senior military leadership and take out their nuclear capacity. That is benefiting America, and it is a good risk-reward. I would oppose invading Iran and putting boots on the ground to topple the government. If the risk got severe enough, I would support that, but I think the relative risk is not severe enough to justify that step at this time. What I would absolutely oppose under any circumstances is invading Iran and then staying and trying to turn them into a democracy. And part of where Iraq really went off the rails is not only did we topple someone who was fighting radical Islamic terrorists, who was a bad guy, but then we tried the vision of interventionists. It actually overlaps with the vision of a lot of Democrats. Let's go promote democracy in the world.
I agree.
And it is our military's job to kill the bad guys, to defend America. It's not their job to defend international norms. It's not their job. So I have zero desire for the U.S. military to turn Iran into Switzerland. Look, would it be nice if they suddenly became Switzerland? Sure. If I could wave a magic wand, great. But I'm not going to send your kids or my kids to be in front of guns to go make that happen.
Well, bless you for that. I think that is the lesson that I learned from Iraq. I promoted that war. Apparently, unlike you, I was dumber. And I think that you just articulated the main lesson of it, which is it's hard to do that, and we're not good at it. But
I will, and so we are agreeing on that. I will say as a corollary,
vehemently agreeing.
As a corollary, that doesn't mean that horrible, evil dictators are okay. And going back to Reagan and the Cold War, we have lots of weapons. I am happy to highlight the brutality, the oppression, the human rights abuses of regimes, even though I don't want to invade them, because I think the bully pulpit of American leadership is really powerful. And I think dictatorships are terrified. So I've spent 13 years in the Senate. One of the things I do frequently is highlight dissidents in Iran and North Korea and China, in Venezuela. People are being tortured. Miriam Ibrahim in Sudan, who was sentenced to 100 lashes and then to be killed for the crime of being a Christian. And I repeatedly went to the Senate floor and shined a light on the government of Sudan. It was corrupt. It was evil. I practically begged Barack Obama, say her name. Ultimately,
I felt that way with the J6 prisoners.
look, yes. Look, there is power to speaking out. And ultimately, Obama never did say her name. He would not say her name. Ultimately, there was enough international condemnation. The government of Sudan let her go. And so she was not executed. And I met her. So she had a 2-year-old son, Martin, and she gave birth to a little girl named Maya. And she was in leg irons in prison waiting for the death sentence. They were not going to kill her until she gave birth. And they told her, we will not kill you if you will renounce Jesus. And she refused. And I met her. She was in D.C. speaking at a conference after she was released, obviously. And I asked her, she's a tiny woman, very small woman. And I asked her, I said, when you were in that prison cell with your kids, how did you have the strength not to just give in to despair? I mean, I've never been threatened with murder unless I renounce my faith. And she just said to me with a real peacefulness, she said, Jesus was with me. And thankfully, you and I have not faced that circumstance. But I do think there is a responsibility.
There's still time.
There is, and I hope we don't. And actually, I'll use another example. John McCain, who you and I disagreed with on a lot of issues, I respected and admired him for his service and time as a prisoner of war. I think his policies I disagreed with vehemently and fought against them. But the man fought for America, and he was thrown in prison, and he was tortured by Vietnam, and he was given the opportunity to be released early. And he turned it down because he thought it would be dishonorable to leave before his fellow servicemen and women. And when I first got here...
There were no women there, but yeah.
Okay, man, you're right. When I first got here, McCain hated my guts, and he actually referred to me and Rand as wacko birds.
I remember.
I have up on the shelf, I have a baseball cap that a grassroots supporter gave me with a picture of Daffy Duck and labeled wacko birds, which I liked and laughed when. But when he did that, I went to the Senate floor and I gave a speech praising John McCain. And it was the day he had attacked me publicly. And it happened to be, it was the 40th anniversary of his release from the Hanoi Hilton. And I just talked about what a privilege it is to serve with someone who suffered for his country, who served. And I didn't get into where we disagreed on policy on that speech. I just said, the man is an American hero, and I'm proud to serve with him. But that was meant to be a statement also, that if you attack me, I'm going to praise you, not for things that are not praiseworthy. If I disagree with you, I will not be shy about saying it. But for things that are praiseworthy.
I remember that. It was 2013.
Yeah.
And I felt the same way. I went to his cell at the Hanoi Hilton.
Good for you, Tucker.
Oh, wow.
I
agree with you
Cruz.
about McCain. I just want to end by asking you specifically about what's going to happen next in Iran and what should happen next. So you've called for regime change. You said you don't favor the U.S. military participating in any kind of regime change. You said you don't think, and bless you for saying this, that the U.S. military should try and turn it into Belgium.
Yeah.
Thank God. But there is a third option where it turns into Syria, where it's this open wound and it causes massive migration and further destroys Europe, as Syria has.
Yeah.
And that's a huge cost, and where lots of people die and religious minorities get murdered in Syria again. Are you worried about that?
Sure. And listen, lots of bad things can happen. But going back to what we talked about, the principle of defending America, I agree with President Trump that Iran with a nuclear weapon is an unacceptable risk to America.
But how likely is it? We've been hearing this live for 30 or 40 years.
And we need to stop it. I agree with President Trump, and I'll make a point.
But he's not for regime change.
He's not. So he and I disagree. Look, I think he thinks it would be better. He has not said he's for it. And you know what? Look, it is consequential when the President of the United States says, I'm for regime change. So I understand why he hasn't. What he has said is he's drawn a red line and said, Iran will not have a nuclear weapon, and the only acceptable outcome is complete dismantlement. So they have centrifuges. They're enriching uranium right now. They're trying to develop a nuclear weapon. He said they must have complete dismantlement. I led 52 senators, Republican senators, in a letter where we said we agree with President Trump. That's the red line, complete dismantlement. I agree with President Trump. I agree with him supporting Israel, taking out Iran's military leadership taking out their nuclear capability. And I'll point out, look, if you look the first term, I am hard-pressed to think of a single foreign policy decision Donald Trump made the first term that I disagree with. And that's not entirely accidental, because I spent a lot of time in the first term in the Oval Office with him. And what happened in the first term often is you would have in the administration, you had interventionists in the administration, you had isolationists. And they disagreed. They would fight within the administration. And often what it would give is an opportunity for me to come in and say, hey, there's a middle path here that President Trump agreed with frequently. And it's worth noting, in the first term, he most assuredly was not an isolationist. Look, he took out General Soleimani, which I emphatically agree with. And in fact, I introduced a resolution that we voted on the Senate floor commending him for taking out General Soleimani, who was the leader of the IRGC and who was responsible for killing over 600 American servicemen and women. When Trump came in, ISIS had a caliphate that had grown up under Obama that was about the size of the state of Indiana. And Trump came in and utterly decimated them. He killed the terrorists, took away their caliphate, and defeated them. And he also took out Baghdadi, the head of ISIS. I mean, those are not the actions of an isolationist. But at the same time,
I don't even know what isolationist is. It's just a slur designed to control. I mean, I've never met an isolationist. I don't even know what that means.
Okay, Rand Paul is my colleague. Rand is an isolationist.
Okay,
and Tucker, you've become one, and I don't mean it as a slur. You consistently say, you have said, actually, I want to read from your newsletter, because
I pulled that out.
If you ask what an isolationist is, your newsletter a couple of days ago, you wrote, Iran cannot have a nuclear bomb, and we're hoping to get back to the negotiating table. We will see. There are several people in leadership in Iran that will not be coming back, Trump said, following the strikes.
Right.
It's worth taking a step back and wondering how any of this helps the United States. We can't think of a single way. Okay, that to me is the essence of isolationism. And let me just ask you, when the Ayatollah chants death to America, I believe him. Do you not believe him? Do you think he doesn't mean it when he says death to America?
Well, I think he hates America, for sure. And I'm opposed to that.
And do you think he's willing to act on it? It's not just hate America. He also is leading a country and trying to develop a nuclear weapon.
Under certain circumstances, for sure. So the question is, do you act in a way that makes that more or less likely? And that's a tough call. It's something that you can debate. One of the ways you shut down debate is by calling people names like isolationists, pretending they're like pro-Nazi or something, or as you did, claiming I'm an anti-Semite. Right, that's not a way to get to a solution or have a rational conversation. That's what
slimy feline.
And I'm against that. And
okay, so if you don't like the label isolationist, how would you... Look, Rand, and I served with Rand. Rand is a friend of mine, but Rand opposes every military action in every circumstance.
Of course I don't oppose every military. This whole thing is infantile, and you know that it is. It's a way to call people names.
So which of Trump's military actions do you support, and you disagree with them all?
And make them be quiet.
Give me another name. If you don't like that, I'm not trying to have you be quiet. We've been talking an hour and a half. I'm asking, if you don't like the name isolationist, how would you describe it?
I would describe myself in the same way you falsely described yourself in this conversation.
Falsely?
Yes, falsely.
What did I say false?
You said that the only thing that matters in a foreign policy decision is whether it helps the United States.
I didn't say the only, I said the predominant.
That's what I understood.
Okay.
So let me revise what you said and apply it to myself and say the only thing that matters is whether or not it serves the United States. And I feel very stung by what happened in Iraq, if I'm being honest, possibly because, unlike you, I guess, I supported it, and I saw us get drawn into it in a way that nobody anticipated, and I saw the cost, just $3 trillion? And the cost on so many levels to the United States was just so profound, and I felt like, gosh, it reminds me of Kaiser Wilhelm in 1914 saying, my men will be back by the time the leaves turn. And of course, that destroyed Christian Europe. So it's like you don't really know where these things are going once the shooting starts. That's my only point. And calling people names, anti-Semite, isolationist, to get them to stop talking is not the way to serve your country. That's all I'm saying.
So I'm trying to have a real and serious conversation. Right. And look, a lot of this has been contentious. I wish it had not, because as we started out by saying, you and I agree vehemently on 80% of the issues. This discussion is focused on the 20% where we don't. I will say, look, on Iraq, you look at the 2016 presidential campaign where you had 17 Republicans running. If you set Rand aside and his views are on one side, there were only two candidates on that stage that opposed the Iraq war. Me and Donald Trump were the only two. Everyone else thought the Iraq war was a great thing. I think it was a disaster. So you and I agree on that as well. In my view, I think your foreign policy has gone too far. So, let me ask you, is there a military action Trump has undertaken that you agree with? Because I've not heard anything.
Look, I would say it's really simple. I believe in self-defense. That's why I keep firearms at home. I think it's morally justified to defend yourself, your family, your property, your nation. And so to the extent that you can deter a threat through violence always being the least appealing choice, violence always being, if I can finish, always being a tragedy, I think you can justify the use of violence in self-defense. That is my personal view, and that applies to me and to the country that I live in. Those are my views. That's not an isolationist view. It's not an anti-Israel view. It's not an anti-Semitic view, with apologies. It is, I think, a pretty common sense view. But my problem is that lawmakers in Washington are light on detail with these things, and they speak, as you do, entirely in moral terms. These people are bad. These people are...
I'm not speaking entirely in moral terms. I'm not interested in killing bad guys. I'm interested in killing people who are trying to kill us.
If we had...
That's different. I'm not engaged in morality.
Are you now? Because you told me that the government of Iran is presently trying to assassinate Donald Trump. And then you
that
said...
is undisputed. There's literally nobody who disputes that fact.
Then why don't you support...
Then why don't you give us any goddamn evidence?
Military action right now against Iran.
We are engaged in military action right now.
Then why don't you...
Because of Israel and their wants, not because they tried to assassinate Trump.
Support offensive military action?
We're bombing the crap out of them. Israel is, and we're supporting them. Israel is.
Okay.
So
why shouldn't the U.S. military defend its own president? I don't understand that.
Look, and it goes back to...
Because you don't really believe it's true. That's why.
Everyone... Hey, nobody disputes it, Tucker. Did we land on the moon? What other conspiracies do you not believe? Was 9/11 an inside job? I mean, like...
Yes.
So I've asked you the names of these people. I've asked you how you know the information.
We didn't land on the moon. 9/11 was an inside job. Yes and yes.
Because the U.S. military and the intelligence agencies have testified before Congress repeatedly
and what did they say?
That Iran is trying to murder Donald Trump and has hired hitmen. Do I know the name of the hitmen? No, I'm sorry. And I don't think we do either, because we would apprehend them if we knew their names.
Then why don't you take it seriously enough to support killing the Ayatollah in response to protect our president? But you don't. This doesn't even make any sense. And you're calling me an isolationist. If I believed that was true, I would support military action against the government of Iran.
Okay, that's interesting, because there is literally...
You can't kill our president.
All right, out of 535 members of Congress, I am not aware of one who disputes that Iran is trying to murder Donald J. Trump. That's not even the looniest Democrat doesn't dispute that. So I don't... You're saying if
I don't care. All those people are bought and paid for. Give me the evidence.
If you believe
all those people cucked out during COVID and they were all wrong, give me the evidence.
What is, I think, a fact that they are trying to.
You think it's a fact?
Yes.
What is the fact exactly?
That they've hired hitmen.
In the United States?
Yes.
Americans?
Yeah, he's not in Iran. So they haven't hired hitmen.
No, but are they the hitmen American?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
So what are the facts? You don't know.
Telling you what, and by the way, I'm not the CIA. I'm not the Department of Defense. I'm telling you what they have told us.
I'm not disputing it. I'm merely saying
we are.
That I'm not. I'm saying the logic train has a massive hole in it. If you believe that's true, then you should, by definition, support.
You just said you were disputing it like a minute ago, Tucker. Stand on it.
Killing the people trying to kill our president, but you don't support that.
Now, Tucker,
so I'm wondering what's going on here.
Tucker, you took offense to the word isolationist, and I genuinely don't mean it as a pejorative. I disagree with it. But if you don't like that term, I don't know how else to describe what is a coherent foreign policy that says we're surrounded by two giant nations. By the way, isolationism has long been a school of foreign policy. I believe in self-defense.
I'm not. Okay, but not into the slurs, the anti-Semite stuff. I just don't like that. I'm telling you what I believe.
So, but is there a single military action Trump took that you agree with? So, do you agree with taking out General Soleimani?
Oh, I don't know. It turned out better than I thought. I mean,
you said at the time it would lead us to World War III.
I was worried about it. I've seen that.
Well, but that proved not the case.
I was wrong, as I have been many times.
Did you agree with taking out the ISIS caliphate?
Well, if we took out the ISIS caliphate, why are they running Syria right now? And you're for that. Why is that?
What do you mean? I didn't say I'm for that.
You don't seem to have a problem with it.
I didn't
that ISIS is now running Syria. You're like, we'll see.
No, I look.
I mean, I know why.
By the way, I know why. Push Assad out. Assad toppled.
It's hilarious.
You know why I don't care?
Assad's bad, but no, ISIS runs Syria, but that's fine. We'll just kind of wait and see on ISIS. Not a big deal.
You know
not a big deal. They're trying to kill
Hold on a second. I want to get back. You know why I don't care, and why, and you do your like trademark smirky laugh. I know why you don't care.
What are you even talking about?
Why don't I care?
I don't know why. You tell me. Because you think it's okay because they're not making angry noises or something. But by your own standards, ISIS is so immoral that they must die. But now they're running Syria, and you don't think that we should take military action against the government of Syria? Because why? They're ISIS.
What I said is I don't know how good or bad it'll be. Look, I wasn't pushing Assad out. He fell. He fell on his own, in part because he was heavily supported by Hezbollah. And when Israel took out the Hezbollah leadership, he lost his base of support.
But the current ISIS leadership, you don't think is bad? You can't say it's terrible that ISIS runs a country?
I am concerned about it.
Didn't Trump say that he got rid of ISIS and that was like a huge bragging point for him, but now they're running Syria? Wait, what the hell's going on? Give me a break. I got to hit the restroom, and then we'll finish out this video. We got about 35 minutes left on the video, so we'll probably be in here for about another 45 minutes or so. But yeah, if I thought we took out ISIS, and that was a big bragging point for Trump. I could be wrong about that, but I thought it was. And now they're running Syria, and apparently Cruz doesn't care. But yeah, let me go to the restroom. Let's see what topics we got left. Cruz knows nothing about Iran and wants to destroy it anyway. Trump's response to Tucker's position on Iran. Cruz refuses to apologize for supporting the disastrous Ukraine-Russia war. Why does Cruz think Zelensky is a hero? Did Cruz support the blowing up of the Nord Stream? I don't know what the hell that is. And is Russia enemy of the U.S.? And then it finishes out on, is America the moral authority? So I feel like we got through some of the better points. There might be a few more good ones, but I'm going to hit the restroom, and then we'll finish this out. So give me a second. All right, appreciate y'all waiting on me. We back. Let's finish this one out strong.
Aren't you horrified?
I want to see what they do.
Oh, so you got a wait and see attitude on ISIS now?
On the government of Syria, they are not actively, that I am aware of, trying to murder Americans. And that's a real dividing line. Are you trying to murder Americans or not?
I'm just saying it's a little weird that we waged this war against ISIS and now they're running a country in the Mediterranean. I think that people would be very, very upset about that. But you don't seem
By
very
the way,
upset about that.
did you agree with Trump taking out al-Baghdadi, the head of ISIS?
I'm totally opposed to ISIS. And what I care about is results, actually. And if taking out the head of ISIS ends ISIS, I guess I'm for it. But now ISIS runs Syria.
Okay,
so I'm wondering how does this work?
I mean, my point is...
At the time, I mean, I've taken so many different positions over the years, some of which have been wrong. I really do my best to be honest and correct if they are and admit that I was wrong. I'm not one of these people who's like, I've always been consistent. No, my views change all the time because the facts change all the time. You're not going to get consistency from me. You're only going to get sincerity.
Well, I will say this, and look, I believe you're sincere.
Yeah.
But...
I'm not God. I'm just some guy watching, trying to figure out the right thing for America.
And I think because you believe you were mistaken, and I agree previously, I think you've overcorrected.
Overcorrected? I'm worried about turning this mess in Iran into a much larger mess. That's the concern.
And by the way, that's a reasonable worry. Look,
I know it's reasonable. And I know you've been like, you're like ready to call me all these names for asking, you're just asking questions. Yes, I am. So here's my question to you. If the Ayatollah is killed in Iran, and he very well could
if there's a war.
I have just read in the paper this morning that Israel tried to take him out twice, and Trump told them not to.
I have read that. I don't have independent confirmation one way or the other.
Do you think that they should take him out?
So I actually talked about it. As you know, I do a podcast every week, Verdict with Ted Cruz, and I actually talked about it in the latest podcast. And I said, look, I've seen the reporting that says that Trump asked them not to take out the Ayatollah. And what I said in the podcast is I think it's reasonable for them to decide not to try to take him out. What they've done is targeted just about the entire top level of the military, the people that actually conduct the war. I can see an argument that taking out both the head of state and a religious leader could make him a martyr and could cause more problems than it's worth. And by the way, if you take out the Ayatollah, I don't know if the next guy isn't just as bad. And so I am...
What happens to the country?
I don't know, but you mentioned before, and I want to go back to this. You said something like, you, like most other politicians, are engaged in moral terms. And let me be clear, I am talking about national interest. I am talking about protecting America. So there are bad guys on planet Earth that I don't think we should take out, even though they're bad guys.
Good.
I'll call them bad guys, but I'm not willing to use U.S. military force to take them out. In this instance, what Israel is doing is taking out their capacity to build nuclear weapons. Why? Because they judge the risk is too high if they got nuclear weapons.
I understand that. I mean, I understand that. I think it's in progress. I think it'll probably be achieved, probably with U.S. military support. Who knows? But the president said he's for that.
And by the way, where the military support is most needed is Fordow, which is it's a bunker that's built under a mountain.
Right.
And Israel's taken out most of the rest, like Natanz, which is their big enrichment site. They bombed the hell out of it. Fordow was deliberately built deep into a mountain so that Israel couldn't take it out. And there's an active discussion because the U.S. has bunker buster bombs that are big enough to take out Fordow.
30,000 pounds.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Israel,
I think I'm a little late on the stream. Well, I know I'm a little late on the stream. So that actually did come to fruition, and we did send the bunker busters over there, and that was a huge thing on the news. I'm sure anyone that's kind of up on this knows about that. So that did eventually happen, probably not long after this interview. So anyway.
doesn't. So the one military piece that
I feel like I was talking at 1.25 speed right there.
aircraft to fly them.
Correct. Right.
But here's, I guess, what bothers me is that I said 2 weeks ago the real goal here is regime change in Iran. It's not.
I don't think that's Trump's goal.
Well, it's your goal. It's Israel's goal. I'm not attacking anyone. I'm just saying it's important to be honest and not lie and not attack people for telling the truth.
So I believe I've been assiduously honest in this. But words matter. You said the real goal here is regime change, and it's your goal. And I want to be clear.
Well, you said it was your goal.
I want to be clear because words matter. Do I support regime change and would I like a government that doesn't hate America and isn't trying to kill us in Iran? Yes, that's a good outcome. Is that the objective of these military strikes? I don't think necessarily. I don't know if it's Israel's. It's not my objective. My objective is taking out...
Should it be the U.S. if Israel decides we're going to decapitate the government and try to foment an uprising against it, should the United States participate in that operation in any way?
Look, I have not called for killing the Ayatollah. And there is nations in war generally refrain from attacking and killing heads of state. Now, the Ayatollah doesn't. He's trying to kill Trump. We talked about that.
But we shouldn't punish him for it.
Look, there has been a long-standing nations in war have refrained from killing heads of state. I have not publicly called for killing the Ayatollah. What I've called for is doing whatever is necessary to stop him from getting nuclear weapons. In the first Trump term, what that meant was maximum pressure. So in the first Trump term, I spent a lot of time urging the president to withdraw from the disastrous Iranian nuclear deal that Obama had. President Trump agreed with me. He did that. And then I urged him to end the oil waivers and to sanction the hell out of the country. And it ended up crippling their economy. So Iran at the time was selling 2 million barrels of oil a day. 1 million barrels, I'm sorry, 1 million barrels of oil a day. When President Trump ended the oil waivers, it cut their sales to 300,000 barrels a day. At the end of the Trump term, the Iranian economy was in shambles. They had massive inflation. I think the regime was teetering. I think it might have fallen. I would use economic sanctions and I would use moral suasion to try to effectuate
if you
regime
topple,
change.
okay, so you topple the regime and by whatever means, what happens then? How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah,
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that
because if
relevant?
you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and
What percent?
predominantly Shia. Okay,
No,
this is
no,
cute.
it's not
Okay.
even... You don't know anything about Iran, so
Okay,
actually
I
the
am
country...
not the Tucker Carlson.
Kablawi! You don't know anything about Iran.
Expert on Iran.
You're a
who
senator
says,
who's calling for the
you're the one
overthrow
who
of the
claims,
government,
You're the
and
one
you
who
don't know
claims
anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump.
No,
You're the
I'm
one
not saying that.
who can't figure out
I'm
if it was a
saying
good
you
idea to
don't
kill
believe-
General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
believe they're trying to murder Trump.
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really
we
believe
are
that...
carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was.
Right, with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity.
We're not
at all.
bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting
This is
Israel.
high stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
Okay, we are not bombing them.
Oh, okay.
Israel is bombing them. And hey, why did you do the snide? Oh, okay.
What do you mean? Because this is super high stakes stuff. This is a huge country that borders a lot of other important countries. A lot of the world's energy comes from there.
So
you
let me ask
don't
you,
want
Tucker,
another disaster. You don't want to be
Tucker,
reckless.
the Ayatollah refers to Israel as the little Satan and America as the great
no.
Satan. Do you believe him when he says it's the great Satan?
course I
Do you
believe-
think?
of course I
Do you
believe
think if
him.
the Ayatollah could murder both of us right now that he would? I do. I believe him.
Okay, I assume no good faith on the part of the Ayatollah.
No, not
and if
good
your
faith.
implication
No,
is like
it's not
I'm
good
pro
faith.
Ayatollah or something.
No, it's not good faith. It's that
Just saying, you're a lawmaker. You're a powerful person in Washington. This is the most powerful country in the world. If you're calling for toppling in government, it's incumbent on you to know something about the country and to think through the consequences of that. And you haven't, and you don't. And I'm saying that.
Okay, you are. You engage in reckless rhetoric.
How dare you say something bad about me that's true?
With no facts. And to be clear,
I'm not calling for the overthrow of a government. You are.
You put out a newsletter attacking Donald Trump and calling him complicit.
I've never
I can
attacked
read
Donald Trump.
Yes, you have. And by the way,
I campaigned for Donald Trump.
Okay, yes,
And this is after anti-Semitism, this is the last refuge. You're an anti-Semite and you hate Trump.
Okay,
I love Trump.
I will read. You put out a whole newsletter saying Trump has
All right.
abandoned America first. And here's what Trump said in response. Well, considering that I'm the one that developed America first, and considering that the term wasn't used until I came along, I think I'm the one who decides that. For those people who say they want peace, you can't have peace if Iran has a nuclear weapon. So for all of those wonderful people who don't want to do anything about Iran having a nuclear weapon, that's not peace. That was directed at you.
Man, you got me. Busted.
No, I'm just saying.
My views, look, I like Trump. I campaigned for Trump. I know Trump. I talked to him last night. Not against Trump, and you know that.
But you're against his foreign policy.
I think that we should be very careful about entering into more foreign.
Just because you like someone and support them doesn't mean you can't be critical of them when you think they're wrong or have a discussion or have a differing opinion. So, Cruz, on 2 different occasions, though, with the Iranian assassins, had no evidence or none he was willing to provide here of them actually trying to kill Trump. And then he also is one to topple their government, but he doesn't know, as Tucker pointed out, which those are questions I am not as privy to, too, because I'm not super into... I'm into like surface, maybe medium level politics of like stuff that's obvious and pointing out obvious contradictions, but I'm not deep in the weeds. But Tucker is more, that's more of his forte. And he's bringing out specific things that Cruz should probably know. And Cruz is just like, I don't know their population. I don't know their percentage of their demographics and stuff. It's like, what do you know about their country that if you're willing to like want to top their government? So you're just an AIPAC supporter, or you're AIPAC backed and you're just like a supporter of Israel. But why? They haven't, like, his whole argument for that was that it's in the Bible, which is a lame argument to me. And 2, that we're safer because the Middle East is safer because Israel's there. And that to me is false by all the wars that we've had to fight over there over the past like 25 or 30 years. If we were so safe over there, how come we had to go in Afghanistan? How come we had to go in Iraq? All this stuff. Like, it's just bullshit. How come we're having to support Israel so heavily right now? It's like, come on, dude.
Wars that don't help us when our country is dying.
When you say
and our
don't
country
help
is
us,
dying.
Look, yes, focus on our country. I'm all for it. But
when we talked about that, or not we, but when they talked about that earlier, and I was kind of giving my dialogue, he didn't really want to focus on that and focus on the things we could do for our country. He was eager to get it away from that. So, you know, and I brought up the stuff during COVID and other things. Well, that was the main thing. But Cruz, you know, I could probably do a deeper dive on this, do a little bit more research on his stance and things, and times he's contradicted himself. But, like, he didn't seem too eager to talk about anything he's really done to try to help out the things in this country. So he wanted to get it away from that topic.
The naivete.
You don't even know how much money this costs. You don't know anything about the country whose government you want to overthrow, and you're calling me reckless.
Kablowie!
I want to stop a lunatic who wants to murder us from getting nuclear weapons that could kill millions of Americans.
Fair.
You say, I can't see how that benefits America in any way. That is bizarre. And by the way,
bizarre.
Isolationism, your foreign policy is the foreign policy of Jimmy Carter and Barack Obama.
Oh, absolutely.
And it doesn't work.
Yeah, I'm a big leftist. This is so silly. I'm Jimmy Carter and Barack Obama. Okay. Let me just say one last thing.
So how is your foreign policy
Well,
different?
Tucker, he just said your foreign policy. He didn't say you are like those in every political way. He just said your foreign policy is like them. So, you know, this is the political mud throwing type of stuff.
From Jimmy Carter's. Seriously.
Please.
But I asked that question seriously.
I don't even know what you're talking about. Jimmy Carter?
So
what century is this? I am the product of the last 25 years watching carefully, being involved in the periphery.
Let's get
and
back on
an unending
topic.
string of foreign policy disasters that have impoverished and hurt our country.
unending string.
An unending string. They would include Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, and our inability to stop the Houthis, by the way, in Yemen, which exposes us as weak, and I grieve over that. So these are failures. You helped preside over some of them as a member of the Senate.
What failures, foreign policy failures, have I presided over?
Well, we were unable to beat Russia in the war that you supported against Russia. You've been spending the last 3 years telling us that Vladimir Putin is evil and we're going to beat him with other people's children, and 1 million of those kids are now dead. You've never apologized for that. That was a full failure.
By the way, look, the level of number of falsehoods you lay out just in one statement are rather
You haven't supported the war against Russia?
Are rather stunning. So the war against Russia was caused, which I have explained at great detail, by Joe Biden's weakness.
But you supported the war.
If you want to talk, we can talk Russia and Ukraine. I'm happy to talk about it.
Do you think that's been
Doesn't
a
seem like you
success?
are.
No, it's been an absolute disaster.
Okay, but you supported it. Shouldn't you apologize?
No, you should apologize. I'm not going to engage in the demanding of apologies. So
I'm like, that's my point. Is all these failures and no one ever says I'm sorry.
Matter, or do you just throw out if you want to talk, we can talk.
Okay, I do. I want to know why. That seems like a true disaster for the United States. You have supported it.
Do you believe Joe Biden's weakness caused the war in Ukraine?
I think Joe Biden's aggression caused it.
His aggression? What aggression?
He demanded that Ukraine join NATO. How does that help the United States?
It is a terrible idea, and I have vigorously opposed Ukraine joining NATO.
Okay, so that's what caused the war.
No, it's not.
Okay. All right.
Did you want to know what caused the war? Look, you do the dismissive. You're not actually interested in facts. You're like, okay.
Okay, tell me. It seems super obvious. You're absolutely right, and I'm sorry. That is a tick of mine that is wrong, and I mean this with sincerity. I'm sorry to do that to you. I just think it seems so obvious that sending Kamala Harris to the NATO Security Conference to say you're going to join NATO is what triggered the invasion days later.
Okay, so can I? This will take a few minutes to lay out because it's complicated, but I think the facts matter. I think two things caused the war in Ukraine. Number one, I think Biden's incredible weakness and the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. Now, I believe we need to leave Afghanistan, but not with the incompetence that led to 13 servicemen and women being murdered by terrorists there. The way Biden did that was disastrous, and I think our enemies looked to the commander-in-chief and said, this president is weak. And when that withdrawal was so disastrous, I said publicly at the time, the chances of Putin invading Ukraine have just risen tenfold.
Right.
But secondly, and this is critically important.
Well, I agree, that was awful, the withdrawal.
And it was a major cause of our enemies all said, hey, this president is weak. And so it invited, and by the way, look, I despise war, and I think weakness and isolationism produces war, because it invites aggression from our bad guys. It's why I agree with Ronald Reagan's peace through strength. The best way you avoid war is being strong enough that your enemies don't want to mess with you. But let's get back to Ukraine and Russia. Look, Putin didn't wake up 2 years ago and decided he wanted to invade Ukraine. He's wanted to invade Ukraine for decades. Putin has referred to the collapse of the Soviet Union as, quote, the greatest geopolitical disaster of the 20th century. And Putin has long been explicit. His desire is to reassemble the old Soviet Union and, in fact, reassemble the Russian Empire that was even bigger than that. If you want to reassemble the Soviet Union, the natural place to start is Ukraine.
Do you really believe that Putin has territorial designs on Eastern Europe?
Yes.
What countries?
He has said that you can go and read his. Hold on. I don't want to lose the narrative of what happened, so we can go back and do that, but I don't want to lose telling the story first. So let me explain this, and then if you want to go back, we can take all sorts of digressions, but just give me a couple of minutes to lay out the facts of what happened. He has wanted to invade Ukraine a long time. And he's done it before. In 2014, he invaded Ukraine, invaded Crimea. When Barack Obama was president, he invaded the southern portion. He did not invade the rest of the country. Why? And the reason is the principal source of revenue for Russia is oil and gas, and the natural gas pipelines run right through the country of Ukraine, and he didn't want to jeopardize his ability to get gas to Europe.
Right.
So in 2015, Putin started a project called Nord Stream 2.
Did anything happen in 2014?
In terms of what?
Wasn't there a coup in Ukraine run by the Obama administration?
Let me finish telling. I told you we'll take lots of digressions in a second. Let me finish telling the narrative. 2015, Putin began building Nord Stream 2. Nord Stream 2 is an undersea pipeline that runs from Russia to Germany. The entire purpose of Nord Stream 2 is when it was completed and turned on, it would let Russia circumvent Ukraine and get its gas straight to Europe. In 2019, Nord Stream 2 was almost complete. And the conventional wisdom in Washington was, this is terrible, but there's nothing we can do about it. I didn't believe that. So I drafted sanctions legislation that was targeted to stop the pipeline. My legislation passed the Senate with overwhelming bipartisan support. It passed the House, and Donald Trump signed it into law.
Can I just ask, why wouldn't you want Germany to have cheap energy?
Because it empowers Russia. And I believe in making our enemies weaker and our friends stronger.
Has blowing up Nord Stream made Germany stronger?
Not being dependent on Russia has made Germany stronger.
So you think Germany is stronger now than it was 4 years ago?
I think not being dependent on Russia. Germany has all sorts of problems, and many of them are domestic to their own politics. Hold on, let me finish. I'm trying to.
No, but what you're saying, it doesn't. Germany seems so much weaker now that its energy costs have spiked and the manufacturing sector is collapsing because of that.
Let me finish. I'm focused on America's interest. I don't want Russia stronger because I believe Russia is our enemy. You and I disagree on that. We can talk about that. But I want our enemies weaker. I don't want to go to war with Russia, but I want our enemies weaker. I don't want Europe dependent on Russia. I don't want Putin rich with oil and gas revenues and able to invest in his military and pose a threat to America. So the sanctions legislation that I authored, it passed. Putin stopped building Nord Stream 2 literally the day that President Trump signed my sanctions legislation into law. He signed it If I remember right, at 7 p.m. on a Thursday, Putin stopped construction at 6:45 p.m. So the sanctions legislation worked, and it killed the pipeline. The pipeline lay dormant for over a year, just a hunk of metal at the bottom of the ocean. Joe Biden came into office. He was sworn in on January 20th, 2021. Putin resumed deep-sea construction of Nord Stream 2 4 days later, January 24th. He did so because Biden had foreshadowed weakness on this issue. That foreshadowing was accurate because several months later, Biden formally waived the sanctions on Nord Stream 2 and let Putin complete the pipeline. In January of 2022, I forced a vote on the Senate floor to reimpose sanctions on Nord Stream 2. The week of the vote, President Zelensky in Ukraine publicly called on the Senate, please pass this sanctions legislation. It is the last best hope of stopping Russia from invading Ukraine. At the same time, the government of Poland put out a formal statement from the foreign ministry to the Senate, calling on the Senate to pass my sanctions legislation, and said, if you do not, Putin will invade Ukraine. The day of the vote, Joe Biden came to Capitol Hill. It's the first time in his presidency he had done that. He went to the Democrat senators' lunch, and he personally lobbied them on this issue, not any other issue. This was his number one issue that he came to lobby them on. They came out of that lunch. Every Democrat had voted with me twice against Nord Stream 2. 44 Democrats flipped their vote. They voted in favor of Russia, in favor of Putin, and 4 weeks later, Russia invaded Ukraine. That was the direct cause of the war. And if Trump had been president, there would be no war in Ukraine.
So may I ask, I, of course, disagree with your analysis completely, but I want to be respectful.
Okay. So tell me what you disagree with.
It's such a long conversation. I've spent the last couple of years on this, and I just respectfully disagree with your analysis. But I don't doubt your sincerity, that you believe that Putin is our enemy, that Western Europe should not be allowed to use Russian energy. I mean, you seem to really believe these things. My question is about results, because I think it's relevant to what we're seeing now in Iran. You look back after having you personally voted to send...
Sorry, not a lot of commentary. I really wasn't familiar with the whole Nord Stream Russia thing, so that was very interesting to me and just kind of how it played out. And yeah, I'd like to know more about that and kind of understand why Biden did that. It's kind of interesting. I don't know if I don't know what to say about that. Y'all let me know if y'all have any insight on that or kind of know what was going on with that. That's very interesting. And I guess the whole thing is if they invaded Ukraine, they would have not let him use the other pipelines. So he's like, oh, okay, I'll just subvert y'all's pipeline so that if I do invade and y'all shut down the pipeline that goes through Ukraine, I don't need that anymore because I have a new pipeline. That all makes sense. I don't know why Biden would be in favor of that. I want to convince a bunch of Democrats. And what was Biden's selling point in that lunch? Like, what did he tell them that made them change their mind? Or was there a bunch of money exchanging hands? Like, what happened? Something happened that we're missing here, but very interesting. And I wasn't up to date on all that. But if y'all know more to that, or y'all really were paying more attention to that, y'all let me know. I'd appreciate to learn in the comments.
Billions and billions and billions of U.S. tax dollars to Zelensky to support his civil service and the war against Russia and all this stuff. Can you say that what you did worked?
So I can say what I did personally, sanctioning Nord Stream 2 worked and prevented a war. And if Trump had still been there, if the sanction had been in effect, there would be no war. I'm in favor of avoiding wars.
But once the war broke out, you voted to fund it to the tune of billions and billions and billions.
And to be clear.
And did that work?
Okay, to be clear, what I voted for the initial tranche of funding, and then I voted against the subsequent one. So it hasn't worked. So I've been in between. I haven't been on the full Ukraine, full-throated hawk side or the anti from day one. I voted for the initial tranche of funding because I wanted Russia to lose. I think the Biden administration administered it in a horrible way. I think they wasted a ton of money. And I think what they did was actually incoherent because they were funding both sides of the war. I was very vocal. And among other things...
How does that go? How are they funding both sides?
Flooding $100 million to Iran, which was used, among other things, to help the nuclear program, but also to make drones that Russia used to fight.
So here's my concern. I'm not going to defend the Biden administration. Really did a lot to wreck the United States.
Yeah, the most damaging administration
at the end, where we sit now, Russia is stronger. It's closely allied long-term with China.
I don't know that Russia's stronger. I don't think that's right.
Okay. I think it's pretty obvious that it is. But it's certainly not destroyed. And it's allied long-term with China.
Maybe. There's no doubt Biden's foreign policy drove Russia into the arms of China, and that's concerning. They also have a long history of animosity.
Western Europe is weaker and more in debt. The United States is weaker and much more in debt.
Look,
hold on. So you and I
are agreeing on a lot.
We're agreeing. Here's my question. Have you questioned any of your previous assumptions? Did you play any role in this at all? Are you responsible at all?
Of course, and like you said...
What have you learned?
Like you, You said you've changed your mind.
Yeah,
I voted for the first funding of the Ukraine war, and I voted against every subsequent funding stream because it wasn't working. And I looked at what was happening and said, this is not working. And had the money been spent in an intelligent way and not wasted, and had it been successful, I might have been willing to fund more. But it wasn't successful, so I voted no. And the war's going to end. Look, President Trump campaigned on ending the war. I think he's frustrated because Putin has been less than eager to reach a deal to end the war, but it's going to end. You're not going to see another dollar coming from Congress.
Do you think Zelensky wants to end the war?
I think Zelensky has behaved horribly. I think his Oval Office meeting will go down in history as the worst Oval Office meeting of any
When Trump shoved him, that was epic.
leader that has ever come to the Oval Office. I think he behaved like a pompous ass. And I think he is unrealistic. I think Zelensky spends his time with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer in the New York Times, and he believed he was going to the Oval Office as a resist figure. And I think he's doing real damage to his country right now.
You described him many times as a hero.
I don't recall ever using the word hero. I will say, look, I'm not a Zelensky cheerleader, and I'm not in the business of saying everyone we support has to be a saint and everyone we oppose has to be a villain. I'm not in the morality game. I'm in the U.S. interest game. Why did I want Nord Stream 2 stopped? Because it would strengthen Russia, and Russia's our enemies. It's entirely U.S. interest.
Did you support the industrial sabotage against it, blowing it up?
So I think you believe America did that. Is that right?
Of course.
Okay, I think the chances of that are zero.
You think Russia did it?
No, I think Ukraine did it. Okay, so I don't know. So I don't know who did it. In terms of the theories that have been put out there, the idea that Russia blew up their own pipeline never made any sense to me at all. That just I can't even articulate why they would do that. The idea that Biden did that. Look, I could see it being in U.S. interest to do that, to blow up Nord Stream 2. I just think Biden was too weak. I don't believe Joe Biden.
But are you in? I guess you in.
So that leads
the Norwegians, the Ukrainians, NATO, whatever.
Look, that leads me to, you know, who benefits? And it leads me to think either the Ukrainians blew it up or Ukraine's allies. I don't think Biden did because Biden was so weak, I don't think he would give the order. I find that implausible.
But you're in favor of it.
Look, I was in favor of stopping it. I think blowing it up was a good thing. So I'm supportive of that, but I don't think America did that. I don't think Biden gave that order.
But in
I
general,
could see Trump giving that order, but he wasn't in office.
Yeah. And you think that the largest act of industrial sabotage in history helped our allies in Western Europe or other fellow NATO members?
Look, I got to say, I don't understand. For some reason, you are really invested in defending Russia, and I don't get that. I'm not attacking you with that. I'm genuinely, I don't get why you're so passionate about defending Russia.
Actually, I was defending Western Europe, the home of my ancestors, and that, tripling their energy costs and destroying their industrial base. Not like... You just accused me of being an anti-Semite, an isolationist, and a Russia lackey. I've not called you a neocon once, which you are, but I haven't said that.
That's absurd. Yeah, those neocons that oppose the Iraq War.
Right.
That's dishonest.
But I haven't called you that because
you just said, which you are, you just called that.
Okay.
Called me that. You just did.
I guess what I'm saying is you're triggered because I use name calling. I get it. I was triggered when you called me names. And I'm triggered once again that you're calling me a Russia defender when in fact I'm defending Western Europe. And I don't think that you
Do you think Putin's our enemy?
Well, he's literally our enemy. You are funding a war against him.
Do you think he is our... No, you're saying we're his enemy. Do you think Putin is our enemy?
I think it is a tragedy that your policies, specifically yours, helped drive Putin into the arms of China, forming a bloc that's larger than us.
So you won't answer that question?
I don't. He is literally our enemy right now. That is a tragedy for the United States.
No, you're saying... But you won't say he is our enemy. And look, I
know in what sense? I don't want to be enemies with Russia. It doesn't help us at all. It may help some people in the United States, but in general,
let me be clear.
I don't want to be.
I don't want to be at war with Russia. I don't think it is in our interest to be at war with Russia.
Aligned with China. That is a disaster.
But listen, no doubt, and I want Russia and China attention, so I agree with you there. But I think Putin is a KGB thug. I think he is a bad man. Now, I don't want to go to war with him over that,
okay.
but I'm not naive, and I watched your episode.
He's a bad man. Okay.
Look, I watched your episode where you went to the Russian grocery store, and I'm
was that disloyal, do you think?
It was just weird. It was like a promo video for Russia, and I don't understand. I'm not attacking you when I ask why, because I'm genuinely I don't get
like when you called me and said something. You weren't attacking me, you were just noticing.
No,
but may I ask you a question? So here, well, let me just answer yours by saying the United States, the Biden administration, with your help, full support, began this war on Russia in response to their invasion of Ukraine. And one of the things was they kicked Russia out of SWIFT, out of the international financial system. Yeah. And my first response was, it's going to really hurt the US dollar, which it has. And I hope someday we can have a conversation about that. It's really, really hurt the one thing that we needed, which was to retain dollar supremacy. So I was interested in the economic condition.
By the way, that's a reasonable point and a serious conversation.
I'm aware. I'm aware. And
but I can agree with you.
No, but I was accused of being. I think it's weird that you went to a Russian grocery store and said it was prosperous. No, my point is
it looked like a commercial. It looked like a commercial. Isn't this wonderful?
No, it was an argument against the efficacy of sanctions. Sanctions against Russia, which you casually and enthusiastically imposed, scoring a little moral victory every time, had no material effect that helped the United States. Russia is backstopped by China, and I recommend that you go there and see it. It is way nicer than Washington, D.C. Way nicer. To me, that's a tragedy. I was horrified and angry at my leaders, including you. It's like, I want to live in a country that's nice, with low food costs and no homeless people.
All right,
I don't understand why that's too much to ask.
Burn. Back to the domestic stuff that Cruz didn't want to touch on at all.
So do
Instead, I get worse with Iran. No, I just want lower food costs. How's that?
So, look, it's a weird argument that you do often, which is, listen, things are crappy in America. Liberals have done bad things to America, so we shouldn't worry about any enemies
liberals,
around
Republican
the world.
senators.
Republicans
they don't care about us. They're focused on other countries.
You wrote that
and our country is dying, and you don't care because you're focused on Iran or Putin.
So you believe that I don't care about America. I guess you believe Donald Trump doesn't
Yeah, I don't think y'all will care about us.
either. Like, nobody cares.
Because
Why wouldn't y'all stop companies like BlackRock from, I know this is a total separate thing, but it kind of plays into Tucker's thing about the domestic stuff. How come y'all don't stop companies like BlackRock from buying all the single family homes? And like, I know there's probably other stuff that I'm not privy to, but that is like a huge thing that affects a lot of people I know. It affects me, and it's been brought up, and it's a damn good point. Why don't y'all stop monopolies that are not really they're not really in the spirit of like a free enterprise or capitalism. They've got like the upper hand, and they have a corner on the market, and they're just like fucking us, and it's not really helping us fulfill the American dream, and it's not help create any new entrepreneurs, and it's not good for anything. It's like, why don't y'all stop stuff like that and actually do stuff that we all want? But instead, y'all are focused on all the wrong things, and I think that's what Tucker's getting at here.
Your focus is way too on other countries. It's way too focused outward. The money that you send abroad could be used here and should be.
Yes.
What money that I send abroad, by the way, I emphatically agree
You send to Ukraine, you don't even know.
I emphatically
Ukraine and Israel, we're sending them all this money. Come on, dude.
agree with Donald Trump's, for example, dramatically slashing USAID. I think the only reason we should be deploying that is to benefit U.S. interest, national security interest, and keep Americans safe. And so,
how much did you vote to send to Ukraine?
Look, you're in about $80 billion.
$80 billion.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So you're in. You love just giving these broad characteristics.
You love showing how I'm a hypocrite and how I'm not doing what's really good, and I hate that about you.
That are not accurate. I'm genuinely puzzled. Look, I don't want to go to war with Russia, but I don't think they're our friend. I think Putin...
I agree.
I think Putin is a murderer. I think he's a liar. And I think he does not wish well on America.
Okay.
And there's a difference between saying that, just like Reagan referred to the Soviet Union as an evil empire, and Putin was in the KGB. Look, my father was imprisoned and tortured in Cuba. I hate communists. It was actually Batista that tortured my dad. My aunt was imprisoned and tortured by Castro. I hate communists. I think communism is evil. And so I think there is a value there is nobody who stands up to communist China more in the Senate than I do, because I think they're evil. Do I want to go to war with China? Of course not. That would be ridiculous. But I think we have all sorts of tools to stand up to our enemies. And I think China is engaged in a 1,000-year war against the United States.
Okay.
They're trying to defeat us.
We're so all over the map. Your family in prison in Cuba and China and all this stuff. I agree with you. I'm totally opposed to communism, always have been. I don't think that Putin loves us. I'm distressed by the moral condition of most leaders around the world, most of them. They all kill people. I'm against that. I'm just saying, I wish the focus here was more on the United States.
Can I say something? I actually don't agree with that statement. They all kill people. There's a moral relativism. So I don't think Donald Trump is a murderer. He doesn't kill people. We don't have concentration camps.
Donald Trump a murderer.
You just said world leaders all kill people, and there's a moral relativism.
You know what he meant. You know he was talking about other world leaders that are communists, because he was talking about, I don't believe in communism. Come on, bro.
Moral relativist.
But that statement was the essence
I'm an anti-Semite, an isolationist, a moral relativist. Okay. No, I'm not.
Did you just say world leaders all kill people?
I'm saying I'm against killing people in general.
So
and hyperventilating about how Putin was in the KGB or whatever. I just want to serve American interests, and pushing into China is not in our interest at all. And you helped do it, and you haven't apologized. And
That's good. And by the way, you're the cheerleader. I helped drive him into China. It's a complete lie.
You funded the war against him.
No, I authored the legislation that shut down Nord Stream 2 that prevented the war. And if Trump had still been in the White House, we would have had the war. And look, the comment you made, the reason things like moral relativism are so dangerous, oh, everyone kills people. No, there is a difference. The United States, we don't have concentration camps. We don't torture and murder people. You look at China, where they've got 1 million prisoners in concentration camps. You look at Putin, where he's got prisoners in Siberia. He tortures and murders his political opponents. Donald Trump doesn't do that. America doesn't do that. And by the way,
what are you
most
even
other
talking
countries
about?
don't do that.
I see the game. It's like, I'm
You're the one
distressed.
playing a game.
I'm distressed.
No, I'm responding with facts. You don't like the facts.
I don't even know what facts you're talking about. I'm not saying that Trump puts people in concentration camps. I campaign for Trump. I love Trump.
So did I.
Okay, so this has nothing to do with Trump. I'm merely saying,
when you said every world leader kills people, it puts them all
more emphasis on what's happening inside the country. That's it.
Is there a moral difference between America and our enemies? Is there a moral difference between America? And what is it? Articulate it. It's valuable to say why. Why are we a better country founded on better values than China?
I'll tell you.
The difference?
I'll tell you why.
And I know
because the whole purpose of America is to protect the God-given rights that each person possesses by virtue of being created by God.
Amen.
By being human. That's the point of our founding documents, and no other country articulates that in the way that we do. And that's what I love about America. My family's been here a long time. I'm never leaving. So I really love the country. Despite going to a Russian grocery store, despite asking you questions about AIPAC, I love America is the truth, and I love Trump. So, but I just want more emphasis on America. That's it.
I emphatically agree with America first. I think Donald Trump does as well. And I think his foreign policy has been vigorously protecting that. And I agree with the president.
Good. Well, I appreciate your taking all this time.
Sure.
And I know you didn't mean it. When you called me those names. Thank you, Senator.
Dang, I thought they were going to end with a handshake, but that'd be a little bit too masculine and composed, wouldn't it? Okay. Well, I feel like I could have had a bit more commentary. I was a little quiet on certain points, but those were points that I was not familiar with, and I actually did some learning with the whole Nordstrom thing. And yeah, I think it was a good interview. It was kind of long, so it's hard for me to remember everything. I kind of liked how Tucker was pushing him on the domestic thing. We need to focus on things here at home, which Cruz didn't want to address. He also pushed him on the Iran assassin things. And like, if you're going to say there's people actively trying to assassinate Trump, where's the evidence? And if that's true, how come we haven't already been at war with Iran? You know, it was interesting hearing the thing about Israel, and he was avoiding the AIPAC question. What else? They talked about the Israel or the Russia-Ukraine thing, so that was interesting. And it was just an interesting back and forth. There was a little mudslinging. There were some funny moments. But yeah, I think it was overall a good stream. I learned a bit. And not as much commentary as I would have liked to provide, but there was some moments where I was able to say some things and kind of give my opinion. But y'all let me know what y'all thought of the stream. Let me know if y'all had already seen that interview and what y'all thought of it, or if this is your first time viewing it. And let me know if there's anything you agreed with, disagreed with from either of those men. If there's any points that I raised that you disagree with or agreed with, or anything you'd like to add on, or if you had a different perspective that wasn't touched on here or that it made you think of, love to hear any of that. And yeah, I appreciate y'all coming over to Rumble when the YouTube stream crashed. Shout out to Rumble. I appreciate them for not shutting me down. They're a little bit more lenient with what you can do. And shout out to Kick as well. But Rumble will allow me to download that stream and then repost it to YouTube. And I can dispute the copyright because I'm well within, what is it called? Fair use, where I am not just replaying the whole broadcast. Like, I have my face on the corner. I'm pausing. I'm giving commentaries for educational purposes. I'm disputing what they're saying. I'm not just playing the stream and pirating Tucker, so to speak. So anyway, shame on you, YouTube, for not allowing me to do that. But appreciate you, Rumble. And I'll re-upload the video to YouTube. So anyone that didn't want to come over to Rumble, of course, they're not seeing this part of it, but they will if they watch the rebroadcast. I'll repost it to YouTube later. We'll see if anyone watches that. But yeah, like I said, get in there, get in the comments, and let me know what y'all thought. Appreciate anyone that tunes in or watches the rebroadcast. And I will see y'all soon. Maybe another night or two, we'll do a stream. Maybe the last two streams I've done have been on like one topic, but maybe in the next stream we'll do one kind of more like I usually do, where I touch on a bunch of different topics, or maybe if it's one topic on a couple different videos and not just one long video, because I know that can kind of get a little stagnant sometimes, especially on my end, where I kind of let it play out and don't really talk as much. But usually those are on the points where I don't know what's, like the Nordstrom thing was a good example where I didn't really know what was going on with that, so I was just learning and watching. But anyway, yeah, I appreciate y'all, and we'll see y'all soon. Also, if there's any topics you would like to see me cover that maybe I missed or something that you would really enjoy, drop in the comments and maybe I'll try to cover it. And I appreciate y'all. If you enjoyed the stream or you appreciate what I do here, share it with someone you know, because word of mouth is still the best way to share things that you enjoy and appreciate in life. And I appreciate y'all, and I'll see y'all next time. LG from Where There's Smoke. I'm out.